Are you feeling anxious? Online Therapy 24/7 is here to help. We offer confidential support from the comfort of your own sofa. Our highly qualified therapists are experienced in a full range of daily challenges. You'll be in safe and trusted hands. Don't suffer alone. Change your life by calling us on 0207 553 50 80 and check out our website onlinetherapy247.com.
Hey, Russ.
Go on.
It's Friday. Hello, everyone.
You love doing that. And thank you. If in case you were wondering, good morning to you straight out of the box there. The 11 o'clock handicap stakes here at Kempton Park. Mark Bradshaw on the colours of Her Majesty the Queen. Chrissy Holt there. Trained by Fred Winter.
Spain. Sorry, you said Chrissy Holt, not my fault.
I know. Mark Bradshaw, who was... yesterday was asking some great questions on the ABC of CBD, which is the show we do with the great Ollie Mammon, which seems to have gone off like a rocket ship. Good to see you, Mark. Chrissy Holt from Spain, of course. Ed Grossman, good morning and very happy Friday. Good morning to you, Edward. Paul Claridge, I'm worried. He hasn't been beaten up for a couple of days. You think he's all right? He has not had the crap beaten out of him for 2 days. What's going on?
I have an itchy nose. Do you think this means something?
Yeah, it means you're doing too many drugs.
Damn.
That's what it is, basically. What's happy about it, Ed? Oh, come on, Christine. I shall call you Christine when we're cross. Chrissy Holt, what's happy about it, Ed? Well, we're alive. We're alive. We're going to come through this the other side. It's rubbish bite now, but we will come through it. And Ed's here, and Ed's here to tell the tale. You know, he got really ill. Now he's fine. So good. You know, you got to live each day, Chrissy. You know what it's like. Come on. You and your tractor. Come on. You know what it's like. Veronica Curran. Hi, guys. With a black flag. She's a pirate, presumably. What is she, a pirate? What does that mean?
That's a Scottish flag.
I can't see it. All I can see is why is it a Scottish flag? It's just black.
Oh, it's probably because Nicola Sturgeon's crying out for independence again.
She's still around. Old Jimmy Cranky. Oh, hang on. Oh, Chrissy, hang on. Come on now. This is shocking. Chrissy, you can't write that. Well, you can write it, but you can't expect Phil and I just to breeze past that like you've said good morning. I'm incensed and angry so much I want to kill some. No, you don't. What? Do you want to get on the phone and get through to Phil and tell us why?
Larry Viner, my dog's got no nose.
How does he smell?
I'm guessing terrible.
There you go.
We got it out
again so it actually flows. Should we do it so it flows?
Well, I was just going to say, got that out the way for you, Larry. Don't worry.
Well, let's do it again so that it flows. Hey, are you ready? Ready? Larry Viner, my dog's got no nose. Hey, how does it smell?
That smell. Oh, I can't remember. What's the punchline?
Oh, Jesus Christ. God.
No, I was going to hang on a second. You were the one, no, because you were the one who said, "How does he smell?" And I thought I was going to say that.
All right, we'll do it again. I'm going to get this right. Okay, Larry Viner, my dog's got no nose.
Really? How does he smell?
Terrible.
There, we'll use take.
There we go. Now, Chrissy Holt, I'm sorry, we're not making light of this, but I'm giving you time to sort of take a breath. What is the matter? Normally, you're great. What's going on? You're incensed and angry. I don't want to read the rest of it because it's not the sort of thing we like.
And I'm not going to lie. Now I just feel terrible for playing, oh, this year I'm off to sunny Spain. I didn't realize you were having such a bad day. I'm sorry.
You could play Jimi Hendrix Machine Gun, kind of make up for it, put the balance in.
Ed Gross.
Cat Stevens. Stevens, I'm going to get me a gun.
Ed Grossman, you know this is a 3-hour show, and that is not the way to fill the time.
It is. No, it really is. Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick, and Titch. David.
Anyway.
Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick, and Titch. Phil Dave, come on. Do it once.
The Legend of Xanadu. Veronica Run says, Dave D, Dozy, Beaky, Mick, and Titch. Hey, I did it!
Oh, my God.
Hey!
Oh, my my God.
It's a happy day.
It's only taken over a year.
Over a year.
Over a year for Phil and Dave to be able to say that.
It's been a proper lifetime.
Engelbert, right, what's next? Engelbert Humperdinck.
Anyway, Veronica Karen says,
Engelbert Humperdinck, come on.
actually, to be honest with you, I think you'll find that I actually am quite good at saying Engelbert Humperdinck. Thank you.
You ruined it. You ruined it, Mr. Cocky, and he ruins it. Right, Veronica, hello there. Veronica was taking part yesterday in the ABC of CBD, and you were terrific. Oh, don't, guys. I was sending hi from Edinburgh. I love Edinburgh. I didn't realize you lived up there. Absolutely love Edinburgh. What a magnificent city that is. I did the Edinburgh Fringe last August when we had lives.
When it needed help.
I mean, August 2019, right? Never been there. I'd never done it before. I just plunged in the deep end. I had the best few weeks up there. Everybody was lovely. The city was great. Absolutely marvelous. It's a beautiful flag. Now, it's my eyesight, Veronica. I wasn't being rude. All I've got with my reading glasses here is a black flag. So I just thought you were a pirate, which was a bit more exciting.
You are.
And please stop apologizing. You didn't have a blip yesterday. Will you please stop apologizing? Don't be silly. It's fine. We love to have you part of the show. It's great, Veronica. Don't you worry about it. Now, is she gonna come back and tell us why she's so annoyed, or she's gone off and killed Mike, her husband?
I don't know. She might be off in a half.
Edinburgh Fringe is fabulous, says Andrea Lucas.
Now, actually, Andy
did well on Bake Off, by the way. He did good.
Andy sent me a link yesterday. Are you ready for this?
I am ready.
I'm not sure how this goes.
A special guest has been invited. Have you put the tinsel on the tree? When he arrives, you'll be delighted.
Hang on, this is 4 minutes. I can't play this.
What the hell's it?
I've never been quite so excited.
I think you'll approve.
I hope he has a present just for me. If you look high up in the sky, I'm talking higher than a parrot. You'll see a root veg flying by. And no, I do not mean a carrot. We've spent the whole year waiting for this day. Santa baked potatoes on his way.
What?
This is Santa baked potato.
Oh my God!
Quite a sight to see.
Anyway, we can't play all of it because otherwise
Is that Matt? Is that Matt?
That's Matt Lucas's Merry Christmas Baked Potato.
Oh, I love it. Andrea, thank you. I love that. Bloody love that. I shall write to Matt Lucas after the show and tell him we played it. If he wants PRS, he can shove it. Dave Sleet.
No,
We've got loads of messages. Hang
No.
on, Mark Bradshaw. When you're producing the show, Mr. B, you can tell us what to play. Never too early to play a bit of Matt Lucas. We love Matt Lucas on the show.
Hang on a second. Dave Sleet. Morning one and all. Crazy day at A&A today. So just dropping in. Excuse me. Just
dropping in.
Once we've caught you in the great web of men's radio, we expect you to stick with us.
Dave, you used to watch Star Trek. Everybody did. And quite frankly, you were in our tractor beam. You're in...
Sorry. What?
Phil.
Star Trek's overrated.
Say that again. I dare you to say that again. Say those words.
Star Trek.
Yes, is fabulous.
Is the greatest.
There we go. That's right. I can't always hear with my earbuds.
To be fair, I did say something was wrong with his hearing earlier on.
Well, yeah, my hearing is rubbish. Ed Grossman, I love that. Matt Lucas, A, the most charming guy, B, the most talented guy. And what you see is what you get. It's just a lovely, lovely fellow. Wish I could say that for everybody, but he really is a terrific guy. Dave Sleep, yeah, anyway, you're in our tractor beam. Veronica Curran, it was alien here over the Fringe. Empty streets, it was a ghost town. Now, Veronica Curran's talking about the Edinburgh Fringe. Here's something for you, Phil. I don't know if you know these stats. The Edinburgh Fringe, which lasts for a full month, they sell 3 million tickets. 3 million tickets they sell.
Congratulations. I didn't think your show was that good.
Matter of fact, 3 million people came to see just my show.
Amazing.
And the population of Edinburgh is 500,000.
Oh.
And over the Edinburgh Fringe, it goes up to 1.5 million. So imagine the impact. My point is this. It's quite a serious point. Because of COVID. This is just one tiny little instance. Imagine the impact on hospitality of the Edinburgh city losing the Edinburgh Fringe. I mean, it's, you know, at one end of the scale, you've got the Edinburgh Fringe, and the other end of the scale, if you put it like this, you've got, let's say, Sue with Nailcoat Hall, but it's exactly the same principle. The impact economically has been just like a hydrogen bomb going off. Appalling. Absolutely.
Now, Mark Bradshaw is asking all of the important questions. Given how serious we are actually for once in our sorry lives being, Mark Bradshaw is asking, do you think that Battlestar Galactica is poor-man Star Trek?
Yeah, kind of. I was never. It was all right. I wasn't like crazy about it. It was a bit too Hollywood for me, I'll be honest with you. The one that was very clever, Mark, was Babylon 5, which was incredibly sophisticated. Now, Chrissy Holt has come back. Do we want to read this one, Phil?
I was just going to suggest, actually, we're a little bit like that on this show, except we're more Babylon 3 hours.
Oh, that's very good.
Thank you. I was almost there.
I'm going to edit this, Chrissy Holt. I'm going to edit it because I just am, all right? She won't phone because she says, no, my voice is awful. I don't know. That's silly. Your voice is your voice. It's not awful. It's your voice. I can't believe that people watch and read and believe everything they see. Don't see the truth. Okay. Especially somebody or other who is rude and obnoxious. Well, I didn't see it. I don't know what it's about. I don't know who Pip was talking about either, so I can't get involved. Not because I don't want to get involved. I don't know any of the circumstances. And I never watch television during the day, ever. It's my golden rule.
Chrissy, I think you've raised a very valid point that I know has come up before on this program, but it's absolutely true. And that is that people get really aggressive now when someone has a difference of opinion.
Oh, just a bit.
And I don't understand it. We've never seen me eating on a live program. What's wrong with you?
No. I'm so sick of you with your delicious holler. I thought, sod it, I'm going to have a sausage.
Oh, the collar had a bit of a disaster this morning. It's usually, but it's fine. It just needed an extra half-hour proofing for some reason.
Yep,
but
right.
You
had that last week.
I know, but it seems to have risen to a better capacity this time. So after an extra
what do you mean capacity? What does that mean?
Well, in other words, the yeast has become more active and the collar has risen better. So now although there's a half-hour delay, of which we apologise for any inconvenience caused. I'm used to hearing that on the underground. What?
It's you.
I thought that's what.
I don't know. You say these things with a straight face, and for a nanosecond, for a split nanosecond, I'm going, yes, he's right to apologize. I think, what? They're hanging around so they can see his bread. It's never going to taste.
It's not my fault. I got bumped over the head of the tannoy as a baby. Anyway, but the point is,
Did you sue your parents? I'm going to sue Linda Dave on your behalf.
No, I made an announcement about it. Anyway, the point is...
That's breakfast time. Thank you very much, everybody.
No more sausages to choke on.
No, I'm good now.
And Timmy didn't say that. Anyway, the point is that the collar needed an extra half an hour to rise, and as a result, it knocked me off filter. So normally I'd have the color in the oven by now, but unfortunately I can't. Ed Grossman, Phil, can you control the color making with an app? Well, I can't control it, but I can certainly see when it's in the oven and when it's nearly done.
He's got his oven linked to his phone.
Well, what's wrong with that? You make it sound abnormal.
I make it sound like it's science fiction is what I make it sound like.
Well,
it's unbelievable.
I was a fan of the Texans.
Ed Grossman, the other comment, no. Andrea Lucas, I've just had, wait a minute, this sounds like an abomination, Andrea Lucas. I've just had courgette bread.
I genuinely gagged then.
Oh, courgette bread.
Oh,
Andrea, what are you back on drugs again? Why would you put courgette What? No, this is too much. Why would you put courgette in bread? This I don't get.
Anyway,
Chrissy Holt seems to have recovered from her murderous rampage. I've just learnt how to make a sausage machine.
really,
Make
that's
a
the
sausage
trick.
machine. You're an engineer as well.
Just want to make the sausages. It'd be much easier.
I'm going to make my own sausages. That's good. I'm making pork pie now. Phil would love some of that. Phil, can you post the holoton? Tell you what, you post in the pork pie. Post it to me. I'd eat it. I'll be honest. I like pork pie. Don't tell anybody. I'm going straight to hell. Chrissy, so you have a sausage factory. I'm feeling cheerful. Chrissy, 30 seconds ago, you were going to go out and murder people. Now you're feeling cheerful. You sure you're all right? Serious question. Are you okay? What's going on? No. Andrea, you are not going to persuade Philip and myself that bread with
Chrissy. I hate to tell you, the truth is, by the time the cholera gets to you, it will probably be less Royal Mail, and if I'm honest, it'll probably be more Royal Stale.
You could, of course, just jump on a plane and take it to her.
What an excellent idea.
All this year I'm off to sunny Spain. Hey, viva España.
I'd love to.
God almighty. Right. It's actually really nice, and it's more like cake, gluten-free and no sugar. It's got courgette in it. No one has courgette cake.
Good Lord. There you go. Sounds lovely, Andy. Please save me some.
Yes. Phil, more of a day. Phil is a modern day Fanny Craddock. It is an incredible thing. When you watch, for the younger members of our audience, that would be Mr. Philip Dave of Hertfordshire. Fanny Craddock was the first of the television cooks. Basically coming out of the post-war era, huge star in the 1950s and the 1960s. I mean, absolutely gigantic. Anybody who did any cooking in any, you're Fanny Craddock. You know, it was like a saying. And when you see those programs now, you know, we were coming out of effectively World War II, and she's got this little tiny cooker, and the set is like, oh my God. And she revolutionized cooking in the country. So it's so easy, because they were kind of like, now they look like caricatures, but at the time they were marvelous. And she broke the mold, no pun intended, and really paved the way for all the cooking shows that were to follow for decades and decades and decades afterwards. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I hate to tell you, I mean, I have heard of Fanny Craddock, and I do know who she was.
You've never watched any of her stuff on YouTube? It's extraordinary.
No. I'm familiar with Fanny Craddock.
Is that a euphemism?
No. I genuinely was clearing my throat at the wrong time.
Okay. Tell you something else that happened to me yesterday that was quite interesting in terms of time. The original James Bond books were written in the 50s. And I listened to the whole of the original Moonraker yesterday. I was walking the dog and doing stuff. So I listened to like a reenactment of the whole of Moonraker. And I looked it up, and Moonraker was written in 1955. I was dazzled by the fact that anyone could think that this book could become the most successful film franchise of all time. As the James Bond's been going forever, right? Amazing, because it was written in 1955, and it felt like, in all seriousness, 1945. And the language, the way it was, the James Bond depicted in the book is nothing. I mean, nothing. You wouldn't even think it was the same. Extraordinary leap to have created the Sean Connery character in Dr. No in 1960.
But don't you think, though, that based on that very fact, that Ian Chestertoff would have been very unhappy with that?
Who's that?
Sorry, I mean Ian Fleming.
Oh, God, you did all that for a gag. You did all that. Ian Fleming.
The way I roll.
Really, extraordinary. It's quite extraordinary how anyone could say, this book would make a great film. I would never have seen it. And it really was very, very small in its It was, well, the video to Matt Lucas's Christmas video is so smart and funny. The animation is brilliant, says Emma Webb.
There you go. You got a resounding review from the web.
You're a rocking form, boy. Mark Bradshaw, did you know that Fanny Craddock wrote a recipe book called The Practical Cook, published in 1949 when food rationing was still in force, and offering such tempting delicacies as rose petal jam and... Oh, God. I actually do feel sick. Oh, God. Oh.
Sorry, can we... Is it actually Mark Bradshaw? Can we now establish, is it Fanny Craddock's fault that there is a distinct shortage of hedgehogs?
Yeah, it's all down to her because everyone's just having a pop. Oh,
well, I suppose it gives a new meaning to roasted hog, but ugh.
Yeah, Ed Grossman. Russ, the bloke who owns the Fat Duck, Heston Blumenthal, would put courgette on ice cream. Yeah, I know. Let alone I know. Yeah, all bonkers stuff.
You know what?
Paul Claridge.
I find this absolutely extraordinary is that I don't understand how with someone like Heston Blumenthal, who, don't get me wrong, he's clearly a very, very clever man.
He's a genius. The guy's a genius.
Ordinarily successful in what he seems to do. But I don't understand how somebody like that could make something like hedgehog ice cream while the rest of us would quite rightly be sectioned if we tried to do that. What the heck is it about some people getting away with these things and others not?
Well, all right, let's put it another way. Jackson Pollock. I'm not being rude. Jackson Pollock. If Phil Dave said, look at my painting, just showed us a load of splodges and swishes, we'd go, yeah, don't tell him he can't paint for, he can't paint for toffee, right? Jackson Pollock, genius. So there you go. It is what it is. How can anybody find Keith Lemon funny?
Well, right.
There we go. There we go. Now, there's another thing. That was Heston Blumenthal. Now, what have we got? Paul Claridge, up a ladder, being chased by Eastern European drug gangs again. Modern world problems. Would you care to read this, Philip?
A few days ago, Amazon in America suffered a network failure. I don't know why I'm speaking like this, which meant millions of snowflakes suddenly found their internet-linked devices, such as robotic vacuum cleaners, doorbells, fridges, etc., suddenly stopped working. And then he put 3 laughing faces. Paul, if you don't mind me saying, I have you as a bit more empathetic than that. Come on now. You know, snowflakes are people too. Agreed that they are incredibly weak and narrow-minded people, but at the same time, they are people too. And they deserve your respect. Primarily because they demand it.
They demand it because they're right about everything. Everything in the world.
And personally,
I went to town yesterday.
I actually find the term snowflake quite offensive. Primarily because snowflakes are a thing of beauty, and as far as I'm concerned, so-called snowflakes are anything but beautiful.
Pain in the bum. Mark Bradshaw, Heston is Fanny's love child. This is so bizarre. This gets more surreal than a sort of Magritte painting.
We got 3 hours of this.
No, we haven't. We've got 4 guests, for God's sake.
We've
got 4 guests today. I'm going to tell you who they are because it's really big. We've got big deal guests. The photos they provide us with photos. The photos are fantastic. The photo of our first guest, he looks straight out of like Dallas. It's a guy called Richard Hillgrove.
Richard Hillgrove, by the way, is an extraordinary chap. I've actually sort of known him. Well, I've worked with him now for about 18 months, I reckon. And in another capacity, he has got a superb PR company that does wonders in terms of the names it works with, really sort of like quite large names that they work with. And yet, he's been very open and honest about someone who lives with, don't like the word suffers, lives with bipolar. And he is going to talk to us about that today. And what I find even more extraordinary is that I never actually knew. This is how well he clearly manages it or possibly has it. I had no idea.
Very big deal. He's a very, very big deal. He looks after people like from Dragon's Den, James Caan, Duncan Bannatyne, all sorts of people. He's a very big deal, this guy. Then Jim Daly, actor, presenter, comedian. Ooh, we like that. We like that. I work for something called Talk Sport. Do you know them?
I'm not overly familiar with them, but I believe that there's sort of some up and
We're
coming.
going to be in such poo, you and I, when Jim Daly comes on. Do you know why? His original sports-related comedy content. We're not going to be able to make one comment on that, are we? Two of us will sit here like two morons because he's going to do sports gags, and we're going to pretend he knows we know what he's talking about. We don't have a clue.
No, I'm not going to lie. For me, it's less back of the net; it's more back of the hairnet. But Giles Paley Phillips.
This is a really interesting guy as well. Giles Paley Phillips, award-winning author, winner of the People's Book Prize 2012, Heart of Harwick Children's Book Award 2013, the US Forward National Literary Award,
which is extraordinary, really, because he doesn't look like a child, but even so,
you're an idiot. And then somebody called Chantal Rickards, OBE, coming on with.
She'll be joining us.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, viewers. Still makes me laugh. Still makes me laugh. Benny Hill. Still love it. I watched a Cannon and Ball. You know, I got to be honest. I owe a bit of an apology here.
I'm sorry.
Because you and I, before he died, didn't even know he was ill or anything. We were talking about Cannon and Ball. I don't know how it even came up in conversation. We weren't the biggest fans.
No, the conversation just kind of went off.
And then, like a Cannon. Yeah, got it. And then Bobby Ball died. And I was looking at some of the old Bobby Ball and Tommy Cannon sketches. They're really very good. They're really very, very good. My favorite is the trumpet sketch, which is just
rock on.
I know, it's really brilliant. The trumpet sketch. Tommy Cannon pretends that he's split from Bobby Ball and he's a solo act. I think it's at the Her Majesty's of the Palladium. It's a huge theatre. And he says, "Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to sing. Thank you so much for being encouraging. This is my debut for my solo routine." And then the military band comes on, all the bearskins, they're looking fantastic, and they all come on with their trumpets. And they're all 28 feet tall, right? Right at the end is Bobby Ball. Looking ridiculous. He's all got the uniform on. And then Tommy's, looking all impressed. And then Tommy does the slow burn route. What are you doing here? You're going to ruin it in here. And it all goes hot, and it kicks off from there. And I've watched it a couple of times the other day. They just cracked me up. It was just so sweet. Right. Now, what have we got here? Ramsey Y. Masalim. That is my friend Jim Daly. I'm his personal photographer. Did you take the photo of him looking rather handsome and butch and mysterious against this urban skyline? It's very, very good. Russ, you don't, but we do. Ed Grossman. What? What is that? What is that? You don't, but we do. No, I've lost the plot there. What's his best book? The Gatekeeper by me. Oh, cool. Him and Giles do the Blank podcast. Yes, the Blank podcast. That's what we're going to be talking about. What are you well, happy? You've just won the pools? What have you done?
No. By the way, in answer to your question, Chrissy, the best book apparently is The Fearsome Beastie. Winner of People's Book Prize.
Oh, okay. Ed Grossman, when I was in Cambodia, the restaurant made... Oh, Phil's going to have a field day with this. The restaurant made crocodile pizzas. Hey, I want a crocodile pizza. Make it snappy.
I mean, really?
Yeah, come on. It had to be. I was waiting for you. Ramsey says, the next war, we go from pizza to war.
I bet you were chomping at the bit. Wanting to really sing.
Ramsey says the next war will be fought over cybersecurity. Damn right. You can see the stress people suffer when their devices don't work for 30 minutes. I know. Imagine a cyber strike that brings down an entire service or network. What would we do? We'd have to talk to each other. Well, the problem is everything is online. Everything we do is on a phone. Right?
We'd have to go back to the studio.
It's not going to happen. It's interesting, though. Everything we do is linked. Everything. If you don't have your computer or your phone, you're screwed. Russ, you should go in I'm a Celebrity. I would no. Thank you very much. I absolutely couldn't bear it. Couldn't bear it. Eating all that garbage and having all those in. No, thank you. It's very sweet of you, but
I think I could deal with everything apart from the food situation. So I don't care if you want to lock me in a pit of snakes. I don't actually mind snakes.
You work at Talk Radio. You're used to it.
Wow. I don't personally see the problem with being locked in a confined space with snakes or rats or anything. I mean, I think rats are quite cute when they want to be. So I don't
when they bite you, give you bubonic plague.
No, if they bit me, I'd kill them. But it doesn't bother me so much. No, but excuse me, I've done pest control before. I'll have you know. Anyway, but
nice way to talk about your mother.
Well, I was going to say my sister doesn't live at home anymore, does she?
No. Hey,
right, the point is
that's very good.
The point is, I can deal with all of that, but the food, it's honest to God, I know when they eat certain members of a kangaroo's anatomy, do me a favor, that's horrible. How the hell? And then just, oh God,
Andrea Lucas would love it. It would be like a courgette bread. She'd think this was a delicacy, you know, kangaroo's testicles. Yummy. I'll put some vegetables with it.
Yeah, warning, may contain nuts. Thanks. Anyway, right.
You've been saving that one for a few weeks, or what?
I really have. Well, just talk. Actually, never mind.
No,
right,
absolutely. Very good. Very good.
Must be Friday with this hilarity. Oh, thanks.
What hilarity would that be?
Laughing at us, not with us.
Yeah, that's just laughing at us. Indeed. Chrissy Richards, we have dealt with the Holler situation. It's behind schedule, apparently, so no doesn't appeal. See, even Andrea has her limits. She'll have courgette bread, but she won't eat kangaroo's personal parts. Okay, fair enough.
Won't eat a kangaroo's pouch.
What the hell? I had rats and ferrets when I was young.
Lovely creatures.
Really? Ooh, really? Caught rabbits with... You're not nice.
Hang on, Chrissy Richards.
You're not nice at all.
Caught rabbits with ferrets. What happened? Did your coat hop off or something? What are you talking about?
She obviously lived in the wild somewhere. And the rabbits, why she wants to catch rabbits, I don't know. Bright eyes. And she'd let loose the ferrets, vicious little sods, that caught the rabbits and killed them.
Oh, I see.
What the hell's going on here? I don't know. What's she going to think about rabbits? She doesn't like rabbits. She needed a new coat. All those things. Kangaroo Sani in Holler is great. Oh, I can't bear this. This is really making me feel actually quite nauseous. It really is making me feel quite nauseous.
I've got some kangaroo meat out back. Thanks. Anyway,
hop off and get it. That wasn't even worth. It wasn't even worth it. Bada bing. We're not country people. I don't know how you. What's that? Richard Hillgrove is phoning up to complain. He's not even on the show yet. Chrissy Richards, you're not country people, are you? I don't know how you work that out. How did you know that we are not country folk? I'm worried about it. I've given up on the Archers. I haven't listened for about a couple of years. I used to listen fanatically. And then I suddenly thought one day, you are the most boring people on the planet. Why the hell am I listening to your stupid problems? Because your problems are stupid. Loads of gags today. I like. So I kind of gave up on the Archers. But I did get very hooked, and I always feel, and seriously, that if you've got the Archers and you've got Gardener's Question Time, life will continue. They're like little bits of foundation, aren't they? Little bits of scaffolding that you can build your life around. That's the way I think of the Archers, and it always fascinates me. I don't even have a garden, and I if I'm in the car, sometimes I listen to Gardener's Question Time. You know, no, next question, please. Hello, Maureen Snodgrove from the Smethurst Garden Society. I'm worried about my clematis. I have a sandy south-facing soil, and it is not flowering. And I'm sitting in the car. I haven't understood any of it, and I'm listening because it's kind of interesting. It's kind of a nice thing. Only kidding. I don't. Chrissy, what is going on with you today? I'm only kidding. I didn't really go killing rabbits. Okay. She's like the Cruella de Vil of wherever she lived. I love all birds and animals. Do you? I'm not crazy about vultures. Watched a great video on YouTube. People are in those little light, not an aircraft. What is it when you're sitting on like a beach? It looks like you're sitting on a deck chair and you're flying along with an engine and a wing. Scares the hell out of me. I wouldn't do it, right? And the guy's got a selfie stick. Not a euphemism, by the way. I mean, he's got a selfie stick. This whacking great vulture, I mean, the size of a Ford Fiesta, comes and lands on his selfie stick. And I'm watching this. I'm going, oh my God. Because, you know, they're like 1,000 feet or 2,000 feet up over God knows where.
Is that where the expression "smile for the birdie" came from?
Very, very good.
Thank you.
Very, very good. I like that one. No, this vulture was huge. And of course, if it attacked this, what do they call those things with the end?
What?
It's not an aircraft. It's you like sitting in a deck chair. You've got a big fabric wing and an engine behind you. I forgot what they're called.
A drone?
No, you schmuck. You don't sit on a drone, do you? It's with a person. But you know, you sit, one or two people. Anyway, because it could have attacked the wing. If it attacked the actual fabric of the wing, they would have come down like a stone.
Oh, what? Hang on. So you mean like some sort of aircraft type thing?
Yeah.
Oh, isn't that a...
I can't remember the name. What's it called, everybody? Come on, gang. Come on. Ed Grossman, come on. You know everything on the planet. Hang glider. No, not a hang glider. Kind of like a hang glider, but with an... All right. Motorized hang glider. That'll do to park it. It's definitely not a balloon. God.
Blimp.
Not a blimp. I had for the BBC, back when I had a career, I went up in a hot air balloon, which I thought would be glorious. It was the most horrific, horrible experience. Absolutely awful. If you've ever done it, you're mad. Ghastly. You're standing in a washing basket. You're 2,000 feet in the air. It's horrible.
And not to mention, the bloke who sold it to him was full of hot air.
I tell you about the hot air. You know, they have these huge burners that
Yes.
they blast. The noise. Because, you know, when you see the films, it's all got lovely music and it's going across the Swiss Alps. And it looks deafening.
They properly do. It's like that, sort of bit right into your ear hole.
It's like being at a Who concert back in the day. I mean, absolutely deafening. And the heat that comes off. They said, "Did you bring a hat?" I said, "Well, I wasn't asked to bring a hat." No, I didn't bring a hat. Because when they fire the burner, the heat that comes off this thing, you want a hat because you think your hair's going to catch fire. And then we crashed. That was really unpleasant. So I had a BBC cameraman with the huge cameras back in the day. The thing went sideways. We went flying along the field. The camera came into my shoulder. It was horrible. Absolutely horrible. Well done, lawnmower engine. Yes, I'm... big news, big breaking news there from Ramsey. I'm reading from the news that Dentine chewing gum has been this. Why? I like Dentine. Whoa. Ramsey, we need a fuller background on this breaking story. Why have they discontinued Dentine chewing gum? And why is it Americans have to chew gum all the time? Why is that? And the other thing, Phil Dave, just going to come back to cooking for 1 second. Yesterday was Thanksgiving in the States, right? Have you ever had pumpkin pie?
No.
It's awful. Oh, God. Tastes like... Andrea Lucas would probably adore it. It was horrible. When I lived in the States, I was invited to a Thanksgiving dinner. So I thought, oh, this is lovely. And you know, we've grown up on movies and TV where pumpkin pie. You think, oh, I'm going to taste it. So they put a huge portion on my plate, took the first mouthful. I thought, oh my God, this is like insulting their national dish. It was horrible. Did you see Little Mix on Jonathan? I can't think of a sentence that you could spend a year trying to construct that would have less appeal to me, which has the words Little Mix and Jonathan Ross in the same sentence. Ed, no, I didn't. Phil, are you all right? Have you gone into a... What's Phil?
Sorry. Someone mentioned Little Mix.
Little Mix. Somebody mentioned Jonathan Ross. Oh, I knew she'd come back. Pumpkin pie is nice if made properly. This is like Andrea Lucas, somebody saying, oh, beetroot's good. No, beetroot was made by Lucifer. That was the worst thing Lucifer ever did. He created beetroot and wasps. But beetroot probably is worse than wasps. But prefer it as a soup. Pumpkin soup. I could try pumpkin soup, but pumpkin pie. Oh, I won't think about it. It's not. You've gone very quiet. What's the matter? Was it the phone call? Did they tell you that Nicole Kidman's not coming round to taste your holler?
No, actually, on the contrary, I was just making sure that all of our guests have our link for today, you see. So I'm sorry, I was actually doing some proper work for once in my sorry life.
Blimey O'Reilly.
I know.
What's going on? What the hell's going on there? Now, at the front end of the show, just while I remember, you did hear a word from our sponsor, which is Online Therapy 24/7. And in case you think why they called that, I was really impressed with this company because you never know when you're feeling down or when you need it. And you think, well, I can only get hold of somebody during working hours. And this company called Online Therapy 24/7 is exactly that. And you can get hold of a therapist 24 hours a day, anytime, literally anytime. You ring them up, they're there. Doesn't matter. 3 in the morning, 4 in the morning, 11 at night, makes no odds. So, if you're feeling, it's the hours of darkness, isn't it? Which here seems to be from 11 in the morning. But you know what I'm talking about. When it starts, and then all your thoughts come to you sometimes. So Online Therapy 24/7. I don't have to do this. I mean, but it's just something. It's that we were pleased to be able to offer to, all of you listening around the world. And it's a thing where you can get hold of somebody day or night. And you don't have to, I'm going to be very blunt, you do not have to be feeling suicidal. It's not like the Samaritans. I'm not talking about that. I mean, if you've just got a problem you need to discuss and talk about, it's there for you. And no, I don't like borscht, Ed. I can't bear borscht. I know. I think I'm Catholic, really. And the other thing is this. If you do want to advertise with us, if you'd like to sponsor a show, if you'd like to have adverts in our show, please feel free. Just email me and you can get hold of me and or just send a message and we will set it all up. We do all the production for you. We can write it for you. We can do the whole thing. And it does not cost a fortune. Andrea Lucas. Ugh. No pumpkin pie and beet. Chrissy, we are no longer friends. That's it.
Oh, yeah, you've got this thing about beetroot, haven't you?
I hate beetroot. And there's always somebody, Phil, who says, but you've never tried beetroot my way. And they always think they've got some fabulous way of cooking beetroot that's going to transform it from utter crap into something fabulous. It doesn't matter what your way is. It still tastes of freaking beetroot. That's all there is to it.
Demonstrates nature's cruelty. It even stains whatever you're wearing as well. Not only is it
on your plate.
Not only does it taste questionable, it stains everything in its path.
It's like, it's like communism, right? It's on the plate and then it just spreads. And even the stuff which has no connection to beetroot is infected with beetroot juice. That was a film with Michael Keaton. Anyway, there we go. No, I don't like beetroot. Anyway, Ed, I really don't see you as a Little Mix fan. I can't even say the words Little Mix. I don't like all the fermented stuff like sauerkraut, says Angela Lee. Sauerkraut is apparently very, very good for you. Somebody rather close to me buys sauerkraut by the bucket load and seems to eat sauerkraut all the time.
Apparently,
I don't know.
Apparently, sauerkraut is very good for not catching a cold.
Wait for it. I don't know what's coming, but you can tell from his face. Here we go. Wait for it, everybody.
Because once you eat it, everyone will stay away. It's always good to amuse yourself. I do apologise.
That's not a joke. I'm not just him. It's not really the gag because I could see where that was going. It's just the way he cracks himself up. Can you imagine Phil doing a one-man show? The show would be longer than a Ken Dodd show while he recovered from every gag. It'd be 3 a.m. It'd make Ken Dodd look like he was doing a 5-minute spot at Jongleurs.
It's good. Good Lord. So sorry.
It tastes awful. Give me a cold any day. What sauerkraut? I'm not a big sauerkraut fan. I've had this argument. You should have sauerkraut. It's very, very good for you. It's good for your heart. I said the side effects aren't so great, and I just don't like the taste particularly. Occasionally, but I'm not like wild about it. I used to God, Ramsey, you are so right. I've only read the first few words, and you're right. Read this one out, Phil. He's absolutely right, Ramsey.
Sorry, Ramsey. I'm just going to recover here.
Do you need more time to recover? You're right.
I used made up some sticky post-it notes to keep by the toilet as a reminder that I'd consumed beetroot.
Absolutely.
Nothing like the shock of seeing the toilet bowl after munching on my lovely beetroot and feta salad.
What Ramsey is saying, I'm going to put this politely. If you've forgotten you've eaten beetroot, you immediately think something horrific has happened to you and you're phoning 999. And then you think, I've eaten beetroot. I'm fine. I'm absolutely fine. It's like if you eat asparagus.
Oh, good.
I love asparagus. I love asparagus. But after you've eaten asparagus and you go to the loo, you think, I'm dying. Oh my God, there's something wrong. I'm dying. And then you think, idiot. I've eaten asparagus. I'm absolutely fine. Yay. That's how that is. What is
Emma, that's very kind of you. I'm not convinced it happened, but thank you.
I don't think Tommy Cannon's going to hire us, but there we go. But thank you, Emma. Appreciate it. Paul Claridge. I love beetroot. Paul, I'm beginning to see why you get beaten up every day in East Croydon. I'm beginning to see a pattern emerge. I love beetroot. It's especially fun. Oh, jeez. Oh, I can't read this. I'm going to Paul, I'm going to heave. I cannot read that out.
I can't understand why the conversation doesn't go like this on the Today program. Wouldn't you?
I have no idea. No idea at all. You can put it up on the thing, but I can't read it out because it makes me feel sick. I get what you're saying, Paul. It's very brave, and it's such dark humor. That is such dark humor. Wow. Oh, Angela Lee changed a few of those, Ed. Scary, huh? Oh, this is Paul Claridge's comment, everybody. I cannot read it.
No, we're not. I don't think we need to read that somehow.
No.
Anyway, as
Webb, beetroot sandwich. Emma, come on. No. Andrea, yeah, loved grilled on a griddle asparagus with freshly squeezed lemon, pepper, and a little bit of olive oil. Perfection. Lovely. Love asparagus. It's lovely. Paul, you're very funny. Not in real life.
Anyway, have you got any other tips for us, Fanny?
I went into town yesterday. I ventured into town. I used here's the thing, right? I went on the bus. One other person on the bus. One other person on the bus. I got on the tube. There were 5 of us in the carriage. 5. Promise you. So I'm thinking, this is great.
Was one of them Paul Carriage?
No.
Okay.
I didn't ask their names. How to ruin a joke. How to ruin a joke. And then I went to Green Park and got on the escalator. And you know Green Park Station, if you live in Spain, you may not know. Green Park is like crazy busy. I got on the escalator and I took photo to prove all this. There was no one else on the escalator, just me. It was like I had the whole of London's transport system to myself. It was fantastic. Got into town, freaked me out. If you go onto my on my Facebook page, I took a load of pictures. Nothing. There was a film years ago with Charlton Heston called The Amiga Man. He's the last person on earth, it seems. And there was nothing. So much so, Phil, you know that one of the busiest roads in London would be Haymarket. You know how crazy it is with buses and taxis and cars and vans and everything else. I stood in the middle of the road to take the photo. Not the pavement, the road. Not a soul. It was so freaky. So freaky. There we are. It was and Soho was sad. What are you smiling about now?
I don't know. I was just trying to make you think that the picture had frozen. I couldn't hold the pose anymore. I'm not very good.
No, I know that's why you were doing it. That's why I kept talking. I thought, screw you. I'm not falling for that one again. Not falling for that one again. Hang on, Francine Warner. Gorgeous men. Please get your eyes fixed. Please. Angela Lee, love the bus these days. Don't have to sit next to anyone, especially smelly people. Didn't know we've met, have we? Yeah, it was all right. It was okay. It was okay, but it was so sad being in Soho. I mean, will you stop doing that?
Actually,
Freaking me out. We've got four proper grown-up guests coming on. You're going to behave like a child.
I am a child by
Oh, yeah, I
comparison.
forgot. Well, comparison to me. Yeah,
Most certainly, though, there have been some people where I've had real issues with before when they've been on the train or what have you, where seriously, if they are, how can I be delicate about this? I can't. If they stink, I don't make it sort of a hidden secret that I don't approve of their, how can I put it?
Smell.
They're permeating. And
what do you do? When do you get out like 4711, spray them, or DDT?
Well, it's not unheard of.
Febreze.
I was going to say,
Febreze. Spray them.
Well, no, there was one chap who, I was with some friends, and the chap who had a bit of a whiff about him. Luckily, I heard him sort of conversing with someone else, he didn't really speak English, so I was quite brazen.
Mr. Johnny Foreigner on our transport.
No, what that? I don't listen. I believe me. I actually long for the tourists to come back in some weird way. London's strangely quiet without them. But no, it was more the point that I didn't have any hesitation when I knew that he couldn't speak English in offering him a can of Febreze that was in my bag.
You had Febreze. I was joking.
Because I was shopping. I'd been sort of getting some bits and pieces, and I just happened to have a can of Febreze on me. So I just sort of rather sort of very sincerely handed him a can of Febreze. And he sort of course, was all smiling and cheerful, saying, "Oh, no, thank you," because he sort of thought I was being nice. But actually, what I was implying was,
I made a joke, not
no.
knowing.
Oh, no.
You
stink. I have a real issue with it. It's not fair. It's very, very selfish behavior. If you honk and you go on public transport, it is damn selfish and revolting. Sort it out. Carry some freshener with you. And don't you dare offend my nostrils. It's absolutely repugnant. I do not understand why people behave like that. It's horrible. So unnecessary. Seriously. And there was one time, and sometimes I almost can't help myself sometimes, because what happens is when in the summertime when people are crowded around,
when the weather is high,
the sky.
I always hated that song.
Yeah. Anyway, Mango Ben and Jerry.
Have a drive. There's good advice for you.
No, it's anyway. Look, I love that song by Mango Ben and Jerry. Look, the point is, when you hold up your arm on the underground and you're clutching onto the rail, right? What do you think is going to happen? You've not put on deodorant. Well, let me tell you, your fellow passengers don't blooming like it. Anyway, so there was actually one chap who did that, who genuinely had a proper crisis about him. I mean, can I just say, I mean, you know how they say the Lynx effect? It was the unlinked effect. Whatever the opposite was, the uncoupled effect, whatever it was, absolutely reeked. Seriously, I have smelt better things coming out of the waste disposal after a night out. Anyway, so what you absolutely bombed. And I couldn't help myself. So as soon as he did that in front of me, I just sort of said what came naturally to me. I just said, "Oh my God." And I genuinely didn't mean to. I couldn't help it. It was just horrific. What is the matter with people? Seriously? Anyway, I digress. You're right, Russell.
No.
I've got to be honest. If I was going to kill off the competition, I didn't think this was to be the way I'd do it. No, it was terrible. Honest to God. And
I like it when you get next to somebody. And I mutter. I've got to the stage where I think I'm thinking it, And I realized, because I always go out wearing earphones, because I'm always listening to an audiobook, or music. So I'm never just walking around. I've always got stuff which are noise cancelling as well. And or I got my big cans on as well. And because I don't really want to hear the rest of the world. And I think I'm thinking it. And I realize I've got to the stage where I'm saying it out loud, but I think I'm internalizing it. And once I said, "What have you eaten? The whole of Spain's garlic fields?" That's what I was thinking. Oh God.
Anyway, so yes, I do have quite an issue with, and that's certainly one thing I don't miss about not being on public transport at the moment is people's appalling lack of personal hygiene. It's absolutely shocking.
You know, on a more serious note, why is it people still weren't wearing masks? Please, let's not play the "I've got exemption." These people. Wasn't exemption.
On that very subject, I must tell you that sort of a few months back, when we could start to venture back into coffee shops, I'd taken the car in for a service, and rather than try and
into a coffee shop.
No, rather than
you say the I think there's a mistiming on the cappuccino, and there's a slight rattle from the macchiato.
Yes, something like that. But anyway, rather than sort of try and venture back home again, I decided that what I was going to do was just walk to this local coffee shop. It was actually very pleasant. It was set in the middle of a park. And as I went in there, I'd just been served, sat down, eating away. And someone came in for takeaway. And there was two girls who really should have known better, but looked as if they probably didn't know better. And said to the person behind the counter, forgive me, I'm paraphrasing. "Excuse me, how much your latte?" Not wearing a mask, by the way. And the woman behind the counter very calmly said, "I'm very sorry, but unless you cover your face, I can't serve you." "I don't need to. I've got asthma." And I have never heard such an amazing response from the person behind the counter. She said, "I have asthma as well. Here is my NHS card telling people I have it. As you can see, I'm wearing a mask as well. I'm sorry, but until you have a card showing your exemption or you wear a mask, I can't serve you." And she obviously never had that reaction before from anyone, because most people just let it go over their head. They don't care if someone's wearing a mask or not. And so thrown were they, off they went. It was amazing. And I had such respect for this person, because I thought, at last, someone taking it seriously and showing the ramifications if you are going to break the law. Let's not forget.
Yeah, this is it. This is the thing. It's not like a happy little option. Maybe you will. There's signs. There are signs everywhere, whether you agree with it or whether you don't. It's like, I don't agree with 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in London. It drives me insane, but I do my best.
I mean, it drives me even more mad when I see the snails overtake me, but whatever.
It's pathetic. But, you know, we don't have the option to say, "I like that law. No, I don't like that law." I mean, you know, it's not a pick and mix. It's not a Woolworths pick and mix. You got to do what you got to do, right? And so it's the law. There's signs everywhere, but it's not enforced. But it's so easily enforceable, because what's easier to see? You're either wearing a mask or you're not wearing a mask. If you're not wearing a mask, if it's the law, you know. But now, one of our people that we know on men's radio, on the radio. She's not on the radio, but we just know her through it. Is somebody called Roberta Depper. Was on a bus. No, she was on a train yesterday. She did a post, and there were kids from a local school pushing, shoving, fighting, using terrible language, blah blah blah. Right, I got a potty mouth. I can't help it, but I don't do it in public. And really being horrible. And she turned around and said something to this group of kids, and they went for her. They totally went for her. And she was shaking. And anyway, it's been reported to the school, and the school's going to investigate. When I was a fly, yeah. What's that?
I said that was a lovely sniff. Thank you.
I beg your pardon. Well, you've made me laugh so much. My eyes are stinging.
I knew it'd be
They're stinging like mad. Jules Silverman. Hi, Jules. I agree. Everyone chooses the rules they want to comply to. It's called anarchy, isn't it? anarchy.
Anyway, wait. This
Angela,
sorry, but after Andy's comment, of course.
I agree, Angela, but usually in the surgery I can find air freshener. Okay, good for you. Well done.
You are listening or possibly watching The Daily Show with him, Russ Kane, and me, Phil Dave. We are live with you until 2 o'clock this afternoon if you are watching us live. If you're watching on pre-record, well, I'm sorry about that, but you should have watched it live, really.
We're happy whenever you happen to be watching this, Philip.
Yeah. Anyway.
Anywho.
I am very pleased to say that waiting very patiently in the wings, and if I'm honest, looking slightly horrified at what lies ahead, is our first guest for today, who looks as trendy as ever in his trademark hat. I've got to find out what make that hat is, like sort of what style of hat it is, because I can't remember.
It's a Stetson, isn't it?
Is it Stetson?
I think it's a Stetson.
Richard, give us a thumbs up or thumbs down. Is that a Stetson you're wearing? Yes. Oh, no, it's not. Oh, it's not. All right. Do you know what? Best way to do is let's just bring him in, really. This is Richard Hillgrove, a rather successful sort of PR kind of chap who's here to talk about something really rather serious. Richard, very good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, Richard. How are you?
Thank you for having me on.
Absolute pleasure. Right. First and foremost, the big question on Men's Radio Station. What is the name of that hat? And I don't mean Terry or Phil. I mean,
it's cultural appropriation because I'm a New Zealander and it is an Australian Outback hat. And it is made by R.M. Williams. So
they make those boots, don't they?
They do. They make lots of things for the Outback. But this should have corks dangling off it, but I prefer not to wear it with the corks.
Well, I think, in London or wherever, that would be
probably
ridiculous. The mighty mosquito hordes.
Put the corks back on. Okay, fine.
To be perfectly honest,
they're going back on.
If you're wearing a hat with corks dangling down, most people here would just call the AA, so I wouldn't really think too much of it. But anyway, Richard, thank you very much indeed for joining us, because I made it clear before you joined us in the digital green room, before you joined us live, that I have had the pleasure of working with you for probably about just over the last year or so now.
Yeah.
And what you're here to talk about, I confess, I had absolutely no idea impacts on your life, or possibly doesn't impact, actually. You seem to, if you don't mind me saying, you seem to maintain and manage yourself incredibly well.
Present as normal.
No, but I don't mean that. I mean that I don't know whether or not that comes from a place of you are trying to conceal the condition that you live with, or whether or not it's because you've actually mastered the art of managing it. So I suppose first and foremost that we should take people back just to tell people what it is that you are here to talk about.
Yes. What am I then? You want me to explain the diagnosis?
I would like you to explain it, because I never like to explain these things.
Well, I'm almost 50 next year in July. So at about the age of 17 in New Zealand, I got diagnosed with it's bipolar, but it was mixed affective disorder. And a psychiatrist gave me the certificate and said, I think now you should be on lithium, really heavy dose. Well, not heavy dose, but lithium. And I was like, oh, no. They tried stelazine, all sorts of stuff. And I think there may have been a little bit of an ethical issue there, because my father had the same psychiatrist and got surprisingly the same diagnoses and was equally not wanting to take his medication. But this whole thing with lithium it was lethal, because everyone I saw on this drug, if you like, basically became like a zombie. And their creativity and their whole everything seemed to dry up. They became kind of shriveled. And I didn't seem to have a heavy form of bipolar or manic depression, or, obviously Stephen Fry talks about it. I've never really spoken about it, apart from when my wife spoke about it in the Sun newspaper the other day, and I was obviously the focus of the story without actually talking about it. So this is the very first time I've ever spoken about it ever.
Wow. Okay.
We talked about
thank you. Well, thank you for sharing it with us. Appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah. Do you want me to elaborate more on the whole?
Yeah, please. Whatever you're Richard, whatever you're comfortable with,
Yeah, sure. So I mean, it's interesting because I think I pointed out to Phil, my father's pathway ended up him throwing himself off a bridge into a river in New Zealand. He was a school teacher. He had probably the biggest funeral in history. It was such a sort of dramatic thing to do. And he had the same diagnosis as me. So it was a real heavy label to be sort of tagged with the same disorder. So my reaction to that was to sort of get away, I suppose, and flee and probably be in denial for the last, probably 30 years. Not really.
How old were you, Richard, when your father ended his life?
It was he must have been. Oh, he must have been only 50. So I'm not showing any of the signs that he's showing. But I mean, obviously, when you sort of have a parent that sort of behaves, or that happens to you sort of worry. Don't you? Especially, I've got the same name as him. I'm Richard Hillgrove the Sixth. So he was Richard Hillgrove the Fifth. And Richard Hillgrove the Fifth threw himself off a bridge and was manic depressive. So there's a cutting in the New Zealand Herald, 1 or 2 lines saying "man's body found in the river." So my name was in the New Zealand Herald recently as the PR representative for WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange. So that's sort of a little bit of a comeuppance, but always it's kind of haunting because it always makes you feel, rather than like owning it, you think, oh God, don't really want to talk about that. It's almost like you sort of shut yourself away from it and move on. So but I sort of like wrestle with it, mainly accepting it for years and years, but I've got better and better at managing it, thanks to Lois, my wife in particular. I think I've sort of harnessed it now, and like Phil was saying, I haven't shown outward signs of being manic. If anything, I suppose it creates a huge super stimulus in creativity and clarity and ideas flow. But then
why do you think that is, Richard?
Wow, I'm not a psychiatrist, but it just seems to be like the sort of, you must hear a lot of people's stories and have an interesting view. But I suppose the downside is that you sort of gather, you have nothing else to output, and the upside seems to be the sort of equal opposite polar reaction to it. So when you finally get on what seems like a big horse that you can ride, you really, really go for it.
It's the reason I ask. It's really very interesting on several levels. One, you are hugely successful in your field. I mean, you're one of the leading names in your field. So in that regard, this has clearly not been a hindrance at all. Two is your story is resonating with me enormously today, because I had a business partner once who ended up on lithium, dead now, but he ended up on lithium, and when he was creative, he was a genius, and when he was off, it was a nightmare. Right. And when I had my own instances years ago, when I was at my lowest, it was when I won 15 international writing awards.
Oh my God.
I mean, go figure. I mean, I was feeling personally terrible, and my career and my creativity was through the roof. Through the roof. So it's a very extraordinary thing. I just wanted to hear it from you, because I've never been able to explain it at all.
It seems to create such a sense of detachment and isolation that you're kind of fighting back to get back into the real world. And if that means, I suppose, I don't know whether it's a nature-nurture thing as well, but I always felt like hyper restricted and like I couldn't do anything I really wanted to do, and I'm not allowed to do stuff. And it's like the build-up of a desire to make it happen at all costs. And then for me, it's sort of like the brain starts to understand the architecture of symbolism and semiotics, because it needs to be able to create, because the denial of that becomes so paramount that I can start, like X-ray vision, seeing how to create the architecture of a story or the way it needs to be for it to work. So, and I think the result of my psychology has been to come up with some of the biggest PR stunts, if you like, because I've been working with Vivienne Westwood for a number of years, and done lots of PR activations. And when I've got it right and I've been in the sweet spot, it's like being able to manufacture a perfect storm. So the one we did the other day was out in front of the Old Bailey. Vivienne Westwood was in a cage like a
Oh, I
human.
saw that. That was you.
I come up with it and I did it. Yeah, so that was me. But, and they, I equally did something similar a few years ago with Vivienne, where we took a white tank to David Cameron's house in Oxfordshire, and that was another perfect storm because we had police helicopters, we had military, we had guards with machine guns outside his house, and we had all these anti-frackers with this tank turn up and about 40 media following us, and it was so wrong, it was right. I even timed it so we did it on September the 11th, 9/11, and what Vivienne was going to do was make a chemical attack on David Cameron's family, so he would appreciate what it's like to be fracking the earth. So it's a kind of punk thing, and Vivienne being the queen of punk, it's sort of like, for me, it was like a toolkit, being able to sort of like, all right, go play. And for me, it was creating the perfect little nail bomb, if you like, metaphorically, obviously, only in artistry wise. And did the same sort of thing for the 40th anniversary of punk, where we burnt £5 million worth of the son of Malcolm McLaren's.
That was you as well?
I did that as well, yeah. So it's such a wonderful.
I didn't know that.
So when I go and plant these things, and then they spread, we had like 100 crew up the Thames, and it went every country in the world, like Vivienne Westwood. In an hour, it was in the Washington Post online, it was in the New York Times online.
What was that? I've got to ask you, I didn't even know you did that, so I'm going to digress just for a second out of huge curiosity. What was your thinking with that?
What were you doing?
Yes, what were you doing, Richard?
It's kind of an anarchic act, because in a way it's just like, if you feel so restricted, what you think, what I'm going to do is blow it all up so I feel free of the psychological restriction.
How did you react? Because I know it caused, you're a very clever man. You're a very clever man.
You.
Right?
Thank you, Rose.
Oh, no, you know it. But because people were saying, well, wait a minute, that's our, I'm paraphrasing, but you'll get to the point. That's our heritage. We wanted that. You didn't have the right to burn it, and then the other people are saying, it's their stuff. If they want to burn it, it's not right. Your heritage, it's their stuff. I think both sides were right in that instance.
Yeah, you're right. And it really, really polarized people. And Malcolm's son, Joe Corey, who was paying me, who agreed to do this, created a huge polarization. And he's been making a film about that whole polarization, but he kind of likes stirring up trouble. So it was a meeting of minds there, working with him and Vivienne for all those years, for 8 years. So, yeah, but I mean, it's the debate, which is the thing that I kind of liked in a way. I knew it would be like polarizing.
Now, the other big question I have for you, Men's Radio, we deal with mental health. So the big question is, do Phil and I get a discount on any Vivienne Westwood shirts?
We could probably arrange something, but we'll have to have a little private.
This is the big mental health question. I do have one of her shirts, and which I absolutely love.
Have you got any Vivienne Westwood shirts? I can't really.
I got one. I got a polo shirt of hers.
Have you? Oh, great.
Got it in TK Maxx.
No.
TK Maxx.
She famously did a charity T-shirt for TK Maxx a few years ago. That shows you how punk she is. That she's quite happy to be like couture. Then come on down and do something bespoke for TK Maxx.
I got to tell you, it was my biggest triumph. When you go to TK Maxx, it's like a hunting big game, and you're going through the rails. And I suddenly thought, Jesus,
how much did you get it for? It should be £200, and you got it for like a £5.
No, it wasn't a £5, but it certainly wasn't.
One sequence of a £5, but yes.
Now here we go. This is Richard. You can see this. I'm just joshing around with you there, but here's something from Deborah Williams. Let me just read this to you, Richard, and you can see how far, the ramifications of what you're saying. Phil, would you read Deborah's comment? Would you be so kind?
Crumbs. A friend of hers hanged herself, had depression, didn't talk about it. Nobody knew how bad she was feeling. Has not talked about next I found out. Oh, I see. She died in early 40s through an awful circumstance. Things like this need discussing, educating people to get support. Thank you for being so open. Do you know,
Totally.
on that very subject, Richard,
Okay.
I'm wondering how open are people on the subject of mental health in your native New Zealand? Because I think over here we're considerably better than we used to be. But what are they like back in New Zealand?
They're starting to get a bit like that, but then I haven't lived there for 20 years. But New Zealand has the highest rate of suicide in the Western world for some bizarre reason, and I don't know why. But
Really?
it's
Gosh.
true. You think, oh, clean, green New Zealand,
Yeah.
and we're all living off the fat of the land, and everyone's sort of like just happy to be sort of wandering around all the trees and Hobbit land and all that. But then you read that the highest rate of male suicide per capita in the world, and you think, what is going on there that's creating that? And it does seem to be a kind of like a remoteness. It's right on the other end of the planet, right down as low as you can get before the last stop's the Antarctica. Maybe it's a bit of that. I mean, if you look at the way that the pressure that's on the All Blacks as a rugby team, the rugby result will come on first on the news ahead of a disaster where 400 people have died on a plane. That's how important rugby is. And if they lose, the coach can expect to be slaughtered because he's failed the whole nation, because all that pressure is on that team to perform. And sometimes the All Blacks seem the strongest team, but it's that sort of psychological weakness of the pressure that seems to be on them that creates that. And you can see it in the culture and the films that get made as well. When you finally see New Zealand cinema, it's always very dark.
Very dark.
Very dark. It's intense. It's very intense because it's like Scottish heritage, Irish heritage, England, but then it's gone to the other side of the world and started from scratch and built itself up. And they have the most unbelievable attitude towards elderly people. I find appalling. They sort of, it's like a pioneering nation, and any sign of failing when you get older. Like, I remember my father when he was alive. He used to have an extra job. He's a school teacher, but he used to work in a old folks' home doing a bit of cleaning, and he would be quite dismissive, but it wasn't his fault, but he was quite dismissive of the elderly people, like they were sort of like not human in some ways. And I used to think that's really weird, because I would be respectful of elderly. And now New Zealand's just passed this law where they're allowing dying, killing the elderly. And I think it's not a pioneering, progressive thing to do. I think it's appalling, and I think maybe that builds towards a sense of isolation and lack of community, and that's why that experience happens. I don't know if I've answered that lady's question, by the way, but maybe I can come back to that in a minute.
Let me ask you this, if I may. One of the themes that Phil and I have explored over several months, and we've already talked about it was interesting, you talked about polarization with the punk thing.
Yeah.
One of the things from Phil and I's perspective, just as the way we see it personally, is, and I don't speak on behalf of Phil normally, but I know he agrees on this, is the way, obviously, that COVID and this insane world we now find ourselves in has divided people on virtually everything.
I know.
But one of the things, coming back to what you've just said about New Zealand and the attitude to the elderly, it's clearly divided young and old. I'm talking about the UK. Particular. I can't speak for other countries, because the young, as we all did when we were young, think they're immortal, invincible, and nothing's going to affect them because they're going to live forever. And everybody else, older, thinks, I want to be cautious. I don't want to get ill now because I want to enjoy whatever's left of my life. And there's no middle ground here. And I think it's really pushed it. Would you concur with that?
Yeah, it really has. But there is a weird phenomenon too. That it seems to be like a lot of people are saying there no longer seems to be a left wing or a right wing. There seems to be an upward down type thing emerging. And I don't know whether elderly and young, all the elderly are cautious and all the young are reckless. There seems to be equally a lot of young people I'm seeing who have become fanatical about protecting themselves. I've got a personal trainer who goes to the park with me, and his girlfriend won't even see him anymore, and he doesn't know why, even though she just doesn't want to take the risk. And she's saying, I'm not sorry, I can't see you at all. And he's like, it's almost affecting his relationship, because he's sort of thinking, well, come on, he's got much more of a laissez-faire approach because he's similar age to her. But then Have you got any data on the difference between the elderly and the young people around COVID? I mean, is there any trend?
I haven't got that. I haven't. But
Because,
I mean,
interesting with the first lockdown, my wife's grandmother is elderly. She's 84, and we couldn't find her. We thought, oh, where is she gone? And it was a Remembrance Day, I think, or something like that. And they'd all organised a street party. In spite of the restrictions, almost in defiance of the restrictions, and these people were all 70 to 90, and they were fighting the sort of idea that they should all be cooped up and locked away, and sticking a finger up at it. And she was, and her grandmother was included. So it's a complete opposite reaction. So in some ways, it might be the young people putting that on the old people. In some ways.
Well, a lot of what I hear at the time from people of various, shall we say, more mature ages. Don't get me wrong, there's a real mixed bag. There's those who don't want to take a risk. And then there are those who say, excuse me, I've not survived all of this time to wait at home to die. I'm going to live my life. And when my time's up, my time's up. And if I'm honest, I respect that attitude a hell of a lot more. But I understand why, through months of having the fear of God put into people, why people would shy away and try and make sure they don't come into contact with anyone else. I just think it's a shame. I just think life is for living.
Yeah, I agree with you. What do you think, Russ?
I when this kicked off and we had our studio before we had to close it because of COVID, Phil and I totally, it's the worst argument we've ever had, really, in all the years we've known each other, about his view, how we should proceed, and my view. And I've actually changed my view. I just think it's much too extreme. I think it's too extreme. And I've got a question, Richard. Have you been, all right, question number one, because you are a PR expert, one of the leading PR experts in the world.
In the world now, you've been promoted.
You've been promoted. Yeah, I'm promoting you. All right, you're the biggest PR expert on the show at the moment. Right, put it that way. All right, we'll bring it down to that. It is extraordinary how we have all been conditioned in such a short time to change our entire lives, isn't it? I mean, it is the biggest PR, not coup, but event probably in history. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and if you read George Orwell, apparently it was all planned a long time ago. But I don't want to even comment on that because I don't know conspiracy theory. But it does seem to be a big PR event, and it does show you the I don't even know how to describe this, but if you talk about the big lie, if you like, or the big sell, and if it's big enough, it creates the result of huge social change. I don't think we've ever concentrated everyone quite like this. Certainly, I suppose that the ability to have a global reach with the narrative, because of technology allowing a message to spread in the space of minutes, hasn't been there before like this. So the idea that everyone needs to be locked down and everyone is unsafe and their lives are at risk, and it creates a sense of pandemonium and fear, which is the ultimate thing for control, has been so powerful because it's just spread everywhere really quick. And even when dissent starts to emerge, it doesn't really matter. But like the Mail Online the other day did something very interesting. They took a leaf out of the book from your David Icke, who all had their Twitter suspended, and people like Piers Corbyn, who could be positioned as outsiders and reckless and spreading lies. But the Mail Online did something really brave the other day. They said that all the stats show that there's no more deaths than normal flu. Why are we behaving like this? And they just laid it all out. And that was quite a brave thing to do, because I think newspapers see themselves as becoming more and more irrelevant in this technocratic takeover, if you like, when you get people like MSN replacing all journalists with AI devices. A couple of months ago, I think 7,000 journalists in America in the last 12 months have lost their jobs. I mean, I've got some footage, interestingly, of the very last speech that Julian Assange, WikiLeaks founder, gave. And I'm really tempted to do a WikiLeaks myself on it, maybe get someone like Vivienne Westwood or Lady Gaga or someone to cut that last talk he ever gave before being put in his cage, if you like, and release the different slivers. And interestingly, some of the things he says is very prophetic. He says, we are the last generation to be free. This is the end of freedom. And in a way, we are hyper monitored now. And when you've got a situation where every time you go into a shop, you're supposed to track your arrival. I dropped my wife somewhere the other day, and I just popped to Burger King, and it said they told me to leave if I didn't take a picture of the squiggle with my app. They said, if you don't take a picture, you have to leave. And I said, well, I'm not taking a picture. So I left. I'm out. They did give me the
Excuse
coffee.
me, I'm sorry to jump in here. You went to Burger King and you've got a personal fitness trainer.
Didn't eat the burger. I bought the coffee because it was next door to the beauty treatment in Maidenhead where I drove my wife.
Very, very, very well recovered there, Richard. Very, very good. I'm impressed.
This is why he's PR in the way he does.
That's why he's the best.
Yeah.
Now, I cannot possibly.
I think we've sort of gone down a bit of a COVID track here, which I know is very easy to do in this day and age.
Yeah.
But if I'm honest, I think that sort of some of us are going to be a little more interested in exploring further, if we may, the bipolar diagnosis that you got years back, or not many years ago, but some years back. The point is that I guess that what have you noticed changed? Because the fact that you have now felt comfortable enough to talk about it a couple of years later, should we say, must mean that you feel more comfortable talking about it now rather than when you received the diagnosis, where I'm guessing you didn't really tell anyone apart from those closest to you.
No, no, I didn't. It was completely in denial. And at that point, when I was in denial, my father was still alive and well. So I was in denial even then. And then when he threw himself off a bridge, I was even more in denial. I even went to the Priory and paid a psychiatrist to give me an undiagnosis of my diagnosis. And he didn't sort of say you're not bipolar. He basically said, as long as you can live and you live your life and you get to the end of your life and you're happy, then he sort of like just, I was paying him to make me feel better, I suppose, because I wanted to be untagged as bipolar, and it really annoyed me. But my wife knew.
Well, what does that tag mean to you? And when you say you wanted to be untagged, is it that you had this image in your mind, shall we say, of what someone living with bipolar is like, would be like, might be like, and you didn't like what you thought that was associated with? Or was it that it suddenly made it real? What was it that sort of made you want to remove that association?
Well, not mind talking about it, you mean? Or ride through it, you mean?
No, you said that you specifically went to someone at Priory to ask them to give you this undiagnosis, as you call it. What I'm asking is that what drove you to do that? Was it that you thought to yourself, someone who's bipolar behaves in this way, and therefore I don't want to be associated with that? Was it that you thought that maybe sort of they got it wrong and you wanted a second opinion? I'm wondering what drove you to want to break the association rather than say, okay, you know what, I'm bipolar, rather than actually sort of trying to remove that from you. That's what I'm trying to sort of understand, I guess.
Well, when I was finally comfortable with the label and learned to live with it, if you see what I mean. I see what you mean. Yeah, I suppose after going through so many machinations of trying to get out of the straitjacket or get out of jail free card, and I literally all had to get out of a jail free card because almost a decade ago, I got myself in such a tangle running my business, being great at ideas, but horrendous at finances. And my wife had always said to me, you've got to get some accounting support because you hate paying bills, all that. And I see a parallel a lot to creative people. It's like the idea of dealing with money seems to be symbolic of survival. And I tried my best, but I got myself in such a tangle. And I don't know whether I brought attention to myself to HMRC because I dealt with some very high profile people. I had one client I won't mention, but it was Monte Carlo, who was super injuncted, and I was getting all sorts of threats from one of the big legal firms, and I was very blasé. I was like, I don't care. That's why they're paying me, to sort of get them out of this tricky situation. And everyone around this person got arrested for nonsense. One got arrested for drug trafficking in Sweden. It was spectacular. I thought, this is fantastic fun, because I was being quite reckless, if you like, thinking, bring it on. And a 75-page threat about me working for this person whilst he's super injuncted. I was getting stuff to run in the Financial Times regularly because I was brave enough to do it. And then suddenly, I don't know whether it was caused by this, but it does seem a bit interesting. But we got suddenly dawn raided in our house in Somerset at the time, with bulletproof vest wearing, 7 HMRC running around the house. Where's your wife? Went up the stairs. I couldn't even tell her. Got thrown in the back of cars with HMRC, who have the power of arrest, so you don't need the police. Got thrown into police cells. And I thought, wow. And the whole charge was allegedly a late filing of a VAT return, but no one had ever called me from HMRC. But
they shoved you in jail because your VAT return was late?
Well, police cell for the day. They dropped all the charges against my wife. But what a mess had been created of the financial. I had a regional accountant, and I was not keeping an eye on the ball at all. If anything, I should have been letting go of staff at the time. This is back in 2010. But instead, the VAT, whatever I was charging for VAT, I might be using to pay the staff. I just thought, right, it's a difficult time with the credit crunch. I'm going to try and trade my way out. And basically, I got treated like the world's #1 money launderer. I mean, it's horrendous. But because I took my eye off the ball with the finances and wasn't on it, as in hated looking at numbers, hated looking at spreadsheets, just in denial, I exposed myself and my family to a horrendous situation. So I ended up getting charged. I got it moved from one court to another court. The first week of a trial to criminalise me by jury trial, the judge threw out. He ordered the suspicious activity report because it was in my favour, but then the trial collapsed, and then a year later they brought the same trial back. So they decided they were going to bring me down, so to speak. And they did, and it ended up in 2014. I was criminalised by jury. 2 months I had to wait to find out what the sentence was. Luckily, the judge, who saw the intricacies of what had happened, and I don't want to talk, so it becomes a legal issue with you putting this out, but put it this way, the judge had good reason to suspend my guilty verdict by the jury. So I got 200 community hours. I had to then go start sweeping streets and picking weeds off, and what an absolute mess. And then my wife had a breakdown, marriage collapsed, we ended up getting divorced. We've been reconciled now. Actually, we're still divorced, and she's still married to someone else. But we've been back together for 3 years, and we've got our son who's 17 and our daughter who's 10. But I see all this as being cause for me not being able to focus on things like money and numbers, and seeing too much of the bigger picture and not being comfortable with it, creating what a drama for the family. Just almost, you couldn't see more of a destruction, if you see what I mean.
You see, you use the key word for me with that story, and we've got to skirt round it, as you wisely say, because it's all sorts of legal connotations, is the word reckless.
Yeah.
And I am terrible with figures. I look at figures, I don't understand it. Yeah, I'm supposed to be very creative, blah, blah, blah. Figures, numbers, I can't do. I look at it, it's like I have numeric dyslexia. I just cannot follow it. And it doesn't interest me. So I have huge sympathy for what you're saying. Huge. As people who know me well will understand. We'll leave it at that. But I'm wondering if this recklessness was part of the condition. Yeah, I just wonder if it is.
Well, it seems to be fueled by feeling restricted or trapped. And I suppose that is what fuels the bipolic episode in some ways. Because to me, it's not just, oh, I'm a bit flat and then suddenly I'm overstimulated. It seems to, the overstimulation seems to be born from the perception of being restricted and stopped doing stuff. And so the bipolic episode of hyper creativity seems to be a rebellion against the notion that I will be stopped. So it's like a survival instinct in some ways. It's like almost a defiant act. So me having that job where I'm manufacturing mayhem to order was the perfect job for me.
That's what I was going. That's what I was going to say. It's a weird thing, you know. The brain is so complicated, and these things have so many side effects and issues. But there you are, coming up with hugely creative, pretty anarchic PR stunts, which are some of the most successful have ever been done. That's a fact. It's not flattery, it's a fact. And I wonder if you didn't have this bipolar situation that made you come back to the word reckless, if you would have dreamt them up.
Yeah, I think they came from my psychology, believing that I'm being so restricted and so not able to do it. And I almost get to the point I'm thinking I'm not even going to be able to be paid by anyone because I'm so rubbish. And since I've got used to it, I can now detach myself and realize it's a creative process. But at the time, I used to believe it. So it makes it really quite tumultuous because you kind of, if you really believe you're about to lose all your clients and you're rubbish, that's quite a horrible place to be in. But
horrible. It is horrible.
It is, because you just think everyone's gone and I'm alone. But then the upside and the surge and all the flooding of endorphins comes from the survival, the comeback, you know, the Braveheart moment where you're
see Richard, here's the thing that is another constant theme here on Men's Radio Station that Phil and I talk about a lot. A lot of our very successful guests, you're hugely successful, you're at the top of your game, and yet what you're describing in many ways comes under the umbrella of imposter syndrome. And I was talking about this. One of my best friends is a hugely successful film producer. I mean, I'm not going to say who it is or the film. Massive films, you know, household names. And we were sitting down chewing the fat, and we're both talking about this imposter syndrome when you're convinced you're going to get a tap on the shoulder and go, mate, it's all over. It's over because you're rumbled. And that's really kind of what you're describing. There's no reason why we should have it, but it's very, very common.
To be honest with you, I'm still waiting for someone to do that for me.
You want someone to tap you on the shoulder.
It appears to be my life, but anyway.
No, I couldn't let you go. I couldn't let you go before. I have to couch this fairly carefully, but Julia Assange, who is one of your clients, is that correct?
Well, he used to be, but I had a contract with him for a couple of years, and I've done bits and pieces before being contracted with him for a couple of years, but for various reasons, and for my family's safety, I've decided to not do his PR.
Because I'm just fascinated, because I've never known anyone who's known him or met him. I never have, and I've spent years now just wondering personally, and this is indulgent of me, forgive me, Phil. I don't know if he's a genius or a lunatic. I have absolutely no idea if he's absolutely the greatest thing ever.
There's a fine line.
Well, yeah.
I think that his problem is he's so obsessed with getting to the truth, and I've read a lot. This is off. I can't say I'm speaking off the record, but I'm on a radio station.
Yes, that would be awkward.
You could say, and some people have said he's definitely on the autistic spectrum, and he, in a way, what I'm describing as a product, the way I can create is a product of a certain psychology, and I think his absolute obsession with getting to the truth is a phenomenon, and it's almost like it's uncompromising. There's no sense of balance or letting things go. It's at all costs, and that's what's created this phenomenon around him. I mean, and his desire to keep litigating all the time, because there's so in the legal process. There's so much smear and disinformation, but he won't let any of that go. He doesn't see any bigger picture. He sees the small picture, and he thinks, right, I'm going to sue them for that, sue them for this, and it just sets snail races everywhere on every front that never ever seem to resolve, because it becomes a hall of mirrors, and it's become a global dilemma, because on rule of law he must walk free, and that's pretty clear to everyone. But what will he do if he wouldn't walk free? He wouldn't go into exile on a remote island without Wi-Fi. He'd start again.
Yes, he would.
And,
yes.
And so what do authorities do? Because on points of law, you can't fail him. All he's done is use the law, and he's exposed information which was hidden and it should be free for everyone to understand. But they don't know how to manage him. If he became free, that's the problem. So it becomes a virtuous circle.
Here's a question: You've been honest about your bipolar. Have you ever thought, because you've got hugely high profile clients? Ed Grossman's just come up with one of your Hollywood clients, which I'm like, blimey. Do you ever think, maybe I shouldn't have said anything? Are they going to try and avoid me and go to somebody else?
Maybe I shouldn't have said anything. What happens after?
Because we're thrilled that you did. It's so important that you did, and thank you so much. And thank you for making Men's Radio the very first place where you've publicly talked about it. It's fantastic, and we're honoured, seriously. But does it, at the back of your mind, is the business part of Richard J. Hillgrove VI saying, maybe I should have shut up about this?
Well, I did that when Lois was going to talk about it in The Sun. I thought, oh my God, because I wasn't talking, but she was talking about me, but the response has been the opposite. So it heartened me that I was exposed, if you like, and people are still talking to me. But I think there does seem to be a sort of a more and more mainstream acceptance about mental health, and you've had situations where the royals have talked about it a lot. If in some ways it's sort of become almost like everyone seems to be mentally ill now, and they all seem to be wearing it on their shirt. So, however, I think a lot of people are just not delving deeper into it, and they sort of are becoming a fashiony type thing to be mentally ill.
Yes.
And that's not really dealing with it, to be honest. If anything, that's skirting across the top of it.
We have another regular viewer. You may well know him, Ken Elmjanur, who was a top Fleet Street journalist,
Right.
and he's a very meat and potatoes guy. And when we're having these, he's not watching at the moment, but when we're having these conversations, he comes and says, Russ, Phil, what the hell's the matter with everybody? Is everybody mentally ill? Just suck it up, stop it. They're just trying to draw attention to themselves.
One thing I in terms of dealing with mental health, one thing that annoys me about everyone just chattering and not dealing with it is that I say this to all my clients, because a lot of people who get into trouble need help, and the media goes down one route and absolutely destroys you, and you don't have a voice anymore. You just get buried at sea. And my thought, I've always said to them, and I thought I need to deal with this myself, is that you need to be as transparent as possible and bring everything out in the open, and don't hide at all. Don't go and hide, because if you hide, you'll get even more lambasted. So it's that transparency. And I'm thinking, right, well, if they're being transparent because I've advised them, why aren't I being transparent? And I think, why don't I take a leaf out of my own book? And the media knows when you're lying. So if you're prepared to give your soul, they'll reward you with positive exposure. And it's the non-avoidance of the elephant in the room. Shine a light on it. Gets that reward. It's a simple trick, but it's the opposite to what people who are under attack tend to do. They always seem to try and shield and hide, and it makes it worse and worse and worse if you're being victimized by the media. So, and I think when it comes to dealing with mental health, I suppose I've thought of it as a experiment in trying to see whether I can follow my own advice. in many ways.
I get that. Now, I've got a question. You are the best placed person we've ever had on MRS to really discuss this. One of the things we talk about with mental health, etc., is bullying. And what you've really been talking about in terms of the media, especially on social media, etc. It's bullying on a scale which we have never, ever witnessed before. You know, it's just appalling, and we accept that it's appalling. And sometimes you feel like you're swimming through a sewer if you go on Twitter or something like that. How do you advise your clients mentally? I'm not talking about the mechanics of what you do as a PR expert, but how do you say to them and calm them down for them not to be heavily affected by what might be said about them in the public domain?
Well, I suppose that the best way is to try. If they're paying for people to advise them, it's to try and switch off. And the only way to switch off really is to make sure you're not getting live updates on your phone. So I mean, what I've just done recently, I know it sounds mad, but Lois did it first. I can't say my wife, my unwife. We're going to get married again when she can get divorced. But my wife.
Get it in that order though, Richard, because otherwise you're going to be back in jail.
Well, because of COVID, it's just taking months and months and months for her divorce to go through. But basically, and it almost seems like not just a thought crime, a major crime to come off WhatsApp. I wrote to all my clients saying I'm not on WhatsApp anymore. I've got the best non iPhone there is. Which magazine said this Nokia is so clunky, it's so old, it's brilliant, and it has got WhatsApp, but it won't take calls, but I can see a message, and I'm calling people, and I was like, I mean, I don't know what it's like to be on crack, but I imagine it would be like coming off heroin or crack for someone to go into cold turkey. It was like, I can't do it because I'm seeing social media notifications, Facebook, Twitter, all pinging to the phone, and then there's streaming. Then they've got my Google Maps, my banking, everything's there on my device. And I was in the room with my wife, and she says, "Why are you stroking that phone?" And if you're a celebrity who's obsessed with what everyone says, and you've basically got the world and the trends, I mean, what happened to Caroline Flack? They said it must have been a lot about the social media abuse she received, and she took her life. And if you can, I don't say to the client, there's ways you can get sentiment analysis and do it in a paper form, and it will print out and it will show you trends and it will pick it out, and you can provide that, and you can generally shape an image over time, but have a complete arm's length removal. Like you call social distancing, you can be distanced from the social media as well.
Hey, social media distancing. That's
social media distancing, exactly. So what did Susanna Reid do the other day? She said she's had enough of Twitter and she's coming off. She made a big statement because of all the abuse she gets. And then about 4 hours later, I was so proud of her. And 4 hours later, she went back on it again.
Of course.
I'm really shocked she's had enough of social media over had enough of Piers Morgan personally. But you know.
Well, he's a bit reckless in some ways because he sort of likes the clickbait stuff and he says the most dramatic stuff. But his position changes all the time. So he's either like saying we all should be locked away forever, and then he switches to the other team and says what's wrong with it. The way he treated Peter Hitchens that time on Good Morning Britain for taking a different view, he just mauled him. And I thought, come on, you don't really believe that. And he didn't, because suddenly he's then switches teams and he's on that side as well for a bit. And then he switches back. Whatever he thinks will get him trending on Twitter.
He's a very clever.
Yes,
there's a very smart.
Don't deny that.
There is no doubt Piers Morgan knows what he's doing.
Oh, he's very clever operator, but he morphs and changes. It'd be like Madonna, who would change her look and her guise constantly, and Piers keeps ahead of the news and is always shifting and shaping to stay ahead of the public opinion. But
I've no idea whether you represent. I've no idea if you represent Madonna or not. If you do, could you please say enough now? Just leave it. Just leave us with a happy memory of when you were the material girl, and just stop, please.
Go gracefully into retirement. No,
please. It's just embarrassing. just embarrassing. Alexandra Lichtenfeld, who's one of our broadcasters, and she's great. And this is for you, Richard. Your bipolar has made you who you are, Richard. Without it, you won't be you. I'm well aware you know this. I just wanted to applaud you.
Oh, thank you.
Here we are.
Oh,
So
that's nice. Thank
And
you.
trust me, Alexander Lichtenfeld doesn't applaud everyone. So you've
trust
done.
me on that. And Ed Grossman saying, Richard, this is fascinating. Thank you. So, you know, people are applauding literally the stance that you've made and the bravery, you know. I'm choosing my words carefully because otherwise it sounds just like platitudes and it sounds kind of meaningless, but it's not.
Yeah,
It comes from the heart, and some people can accept it.
and I think
I think you're processing that.
Thank you. And I think what people can take from New Zealand, one of the most famous things, it's like for China, it's the Chinese takeaway, isn't it? But from New Zealand, it's the haka, it's the Maori war dance. And I actually do have 1/16th Maori, so I've got a mandate to do hakas. And the year I got done for all that tax, in Global Entrepreneurship Week, I organised and paid for authentic Maoris who do lots of corporate drills. They do it for News UK, to Vodafone, to everyone. They come in and they make people, all the senior executives, do the haka. And I've started. I did a haka myself, and I got the council to agree we could do a haka at Piccadilly Circus. You can go online and say haka for business, and you can see it there. But more than energizing and helping you cope with your demons, if you like, in the business arena, I think it's really good for mental health. That it takes that punk aspect, if you like. I was even thinking of calling it haka for punk. I don't know, but it's like pushing out all that horrible layers of pent up frustration and anger that might come from your condition. And if you can sort of like be brave enough to push out with that, it really clears the air and gives you that sense of yourself again without all those layers. Something like that is really good for people to do. I'm thinking of boxing it up and teaching it more wider.
It's a good idea. It's why I drum. It's why I drum. I like nothing better than going into a private studio somewhere, putting my earphones on just on my own, and thrashing a kit for a couple of hours, which I can't wait to go back and do, because you get into the zone and you come out exhausted physically, mentally, and it's great. You can't think of anything else. That's what you're going to do. It's
drumming terrific. Like in the traditional drum, or you mean
with
like
a proper kit? You know, like
really?
a rock kit. Just putting on very heavy music. And just thrashing the hell out of the kit to Metallica or AC/DC.
Well, you come and do a haka, and I'll come and do some drums. How about that?
But it's a very similar thing, isn't it? It's a physical act to kind of shift whatever is inside. It's important.
That's ultimately what I've got good at doing is having these techniques. And one thing I do, they always say, just do it. But I've always got such a perfectionist mode. It creates a spiral of non-action. So not being perfect, just doing it, like doing a haka, like a proposal to a client. Just send that proposal, and it's about the more you do and the more you just get it out there, the less the effects of the bipolar, the negative effects they don't seem to be so deep anymore. And it's taken me almost 30 years to try and to sort of harness it, if you like. It is like harnessing. It's like a bucking bronco, isn't it? But you can then to break.
Can I ask what might sound a pretty silly question? Is it a case of that the negative effects, as you call them, of the bipolar, do you recognize when they are about to happen, or does it just flick a switch?
It's weird, actually. I always try to work out the timing on it, but it sort of seems to be not in perfect symmetry, and it does seem to be sometimes triggered by things that might remind me of something. So that's sort of more worrying, because it'd be quite nice if I could book it in on a certain day.
I can't get the bipolar on Thursday because I've got clients, but Friday morning I'm free. It could be like that.
I'm having a manic episode, so I better not do.
Yes.
But I am quite good at just keeping it, watching the cycle, which is, I suppose, every 2 weeks or to a month. It seems to cycle. I suppose it's like a menstrual cycle in some ways, but not that I've had a menstrual cycle. But I would say comparing it to that would be something that is possible. But
you're comparing it to the regularity of, rather than the actual physical symptoms of. But
like the tide of the ocean was probably a better analogy to use. Can't book it in. I think stress can sometimes trigger an episode. If I'm trying to juggle too much, that can set it off. But just certain reminders or certain types of people who seem to play certain tricks on you, because business can be very competitive, and sometimes people aren't very nice. And you notice that.
You think?
But I'm not saying like you should shy away from everybody, but you can just learn ways to not give your soul to everybody and then get consumed by it. So having a sense of removedness, just doing it, all these sort of techniques, slowly but surely, largely helped by my wife. I mean, she's been a massive, my unwife.
Your ex-wife, who you charmingly refer to very sweetly as your wife, is Lois. Is that right, Lois?
That's correct.
Right.
And mother of my two
She's
children.
a huge. I don't know if you know how many times you've mentioned her during our chat. A huge, wonderful, stabilizing influence on you.
Yeah, massively so. Yeah, very complimentary. And because we've been through so much rubbish together, and I mean, she almost got killed by the stress. She was being lumbar punched in hospital. On the first day of my trial, she was taken to Yeovil Hospital and they lumbar punched her. I mean, and on the day that I got the suspended sentence, she collapsed in the court and she had to be carried out of court. I mean, then she had a massive breakdown. Then she got into a horrendous domestic abuse situation with this monster, and almost killed her. You know what I mean? We've been through it all together. And we've got two lovely kids. I've got Richard J.D. Hillgrove, the 7th.
The 7th. You gotta love it. You gotta love that.
I'm not sure if he's going to do Richard J. Hillgrove the 8th, but that would be nice. No pressure.
No, clearly not. For 8 generations, no pressure at all.
If he's watching. Can I just say, it must be a beggar trying to find your family on social media.
My family, why? Oh, yeah.
Well, because we've got the same blooming name. Which one's new?
I know. Well, Richard Hillgrove the 5th's dead, though, of course, remember. So there's less competition.
Here's a great question. Here is a question, and I mentioned him before. I didn't realize he was watching the show. Ken Elm-Janur, who was top Fleet Street journalist for many, many years. Richard,
yes,
it's a bit naughty this, but let's go for it. What the hell? Richard, if they were your clients, they might be, I have no idea, Richard, to be honest with you. If they were your clients, what advice would you give Harry and me again?
What? And his personal... So... Can you translate that question so I can answer it for me?
Okay.
If you were representing Harry and Meghan, what advice would you give them?
Harry. Oh, yes, sorry. Harry and Meghan. Yeah, got you. Yeah. I think, personally, he is very caught up in quite a big game and he's not even aware of it. And he needs to get out of that situation. But I have said that on Talk Radio, but... I don't think he's in a particularly good place, to be honest. And I mean, there's some horrible stuff. He signed that Netflix deal, which is now going to expose him to a reality show. He's going to be followed around, and he's always professed that he wanted to get away from the UK, to get away from the spotlight, and now he's going to be doing a reality show. How bizarre! And then the embarrassment of the Crown for his dad and all the personal stuff that dredges up, yet Harry signed this deal with Netflix. I think he's in a horribly sticky situation. And when you've got kids, he don't want to separate from that nucleus. He's trying to hold it up, but he's under a lot of stress, in my opinion. I think he's going to have to walk away. But
I really hope that part of his Netflix deal is that it will see him making an appearance in the next series of The Crown, because it just makes sense, really. I mean, what's the point of Netflix letting that money go to waste? You
think he might play himself, perhaps?
Yeah, that's it. That's what we wanted to do. That would be just genius. That would be absolute genius. Richard, you have been one of my, and I think I'm speaking on behalf of Phil, which I rarely do, one of our favourite guests. Extraordinary. And thank you for your honesty. Thank you for just being, open about it. And if you ever feel like representing a very small very underfunded, tiny little radio station that's trying to do its best in the world of mental health. Be my guest.
And we'll give you their number.
Give me the number after the show. I would love to talk about that. Yes, I'll get a tank to turn up at your house.
Yeah, that's it. Let's think of something small, like Vivienne Westwood in a cage, followed by a white tank.
Yeah, well, we can talk about other ideas.
Yeah, I was thinking of something a little kind of more compact, but or Phil could burn all his clothes, which must come to about £5 million, and would be a complete act of punk.
Yeah.
That would be
Okay, let's do
all
it.
his waistcoats and cravats.
No,
Richard, thank you very much, and continued good health.
Yes, thank you, Richard. And I've no doubt I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Farewell. Bye.
Bye. Thank you so much. What a great guy.
There you
What a
go.
great
As
guy.
soon as,
How do you work with him?
so,
Am I
as soon-
allowed to ask?
I don't know. I just don't know how I do it. Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry. How do I?
Fool. How do you know him?
Oh, right. No. I work with him because he is a regular paper reviewer on one of the programs I produce for Talk Radio. So there you go.
Okay. Oh, I see.
One of the
I
programs. The only program I produce for Talk Radio.
One of them. That's it. It's
Right.
really, Ken Elm, I couldn't agree with you more, mate. Absolutely agree. I'm not going to read it out. You can read it yourselves, everybody. The comments on the right. Ken Elm, 100%.
Well, I mean,
What an interesting guy. What an
I'm
interesting
completely
guy.
convinced that I would take a situation such as an abortion and turn it into a money-making venture, allegedly. I assume they've made money. I don't know for sure. But I certainly...
So, what are you saying?
I'm assuming when you're talking about my advice to them would be, for God's sake, shut up. And I'm saying, if you're talking about the Sussexes, my advice is most certainly, I don't think it's very appropriate taking a situation like abortion and then sort of turning it into a publicity stunt, personally. But then there are some who say, yeah, but speaking out will help others. And I hope that's the case. If that's genuinely the reason that they've done that, I really hope it helps others. Anyway, call me a cynic, but I'm not convinced of that.
Phil, it's better when you and I disagree because it gives more yin and yang and balance to. And being a Libran, I like that. It gives more balance to the show. But I completely agree. I can't.
In that case, may I just what she did was marvelous, and I'm so
okay. There we go. That's more like it. I'm happier when you say it's. I tell you why we talk about it on the show. I tell you why. Because if you're going to have people like Richard coming on and all our other guests who talk about mental health with honesty and openness and nothing to gain, we're not paying the guests, obviously. They're coming here. They have nothing of a personal level to gain. They're just being very honest and trying to help and being on it, open. And when I smell duplicity, when I smell obfuscation of the facts, I get irate. I'll be honest with you. And Andrew's quite right. I didn't want to miss.
Can I just say?
I think you used the wrong word.
I have been. I'm so sorry. Please forgive me. I did use the wrong word. It was, of course, a miscarriage. It was not abortion. I'm very sorry.
That's all right. Even your mum's, I kept quiet because I thought, well, he normally knows much more than I do. But in that instance, it was a slip of the tongue. So please don't anybody take offence with Phil. It was a genuine slip.
I humbly apologise. I made a mistake. But
no, he made a mistake. He's human. Sue him. What the hell?
No, don't ask him to do that. But anyway.
No, I just want you to go through the stress that Richard. I want a phone call. Russ, what? I'm in jail. Phil, I'm having my supper. Can't you come and get me? Phil, it'll get cold. Oh, maybe I'm going to finish my supper now. That would be it. That would be it. It is interesting, isn't it? Interesting that the tax people, HMRC, whatever it is, HMRC, isn't it? Have more powers than and the VAT people have way more powers than the police. Way more powers than the police. They can literally. Oh well, Ken, I'm not going to even. I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to. You see, it's not our business. That's kind of my view. It's not our business.
That's where it comes from for me. Is I don't understand where this obsession with voyeurism comes from everybody.
What are we supposed to do? I think what I struggle with is what are we supposed to do with that information? What are we supposed to? Because if you give information, it's meant to have a reaction. You don't just say things because you want to say them. I'm not talking about when Phil and I are arsing around at the front end of the show. I'm talking about when you're giving out information, it's so that somebody will act. Every action has a reaction. So what are we supposed to do with information that does not concern us? It's none of our business. That's the point. You see now, Andrea Lucas, although it sounds flippant, it's not. More importantly, Emmerdale, that's the show, used to be Emmerdale Farm, a billion years ago, Emmerdale, discussing the abortion of a Down's syndrome fetus. Now that is a huge issue. And it's extraordinary and powerful that you take a soap opera to deal with very, very complicated issues. I don't watch the show, but I get it. Ken Elm, again, anything for a payday. Boom, there you go. What's going on? A lot of people.
No, ignore that.
No, I'm not reading that one. I'm not reading that one. Yeah. God, Phil will deal with that nonsense. Okay. They're armed. Are they? What, the tax people come in armed? Are you going to hit them with a VAT receipt? You're going to hit them with an invoice. What are you going to do? Don't shoot. I've got a stapler to put my paperwork together. Don't shoot. It's completely madness, isn't it? Oh dear. Phil's doing some very clever tech work there. Boy, I really like that last guess. It's very, very interesting, isn't it? What is fascinating? There were so many interesting things about that, but one of the things is how you take something which can be seen as a huge disadvantage and you turn it into energy. And you finesse it into a skill. And I totally relate to that. And it's a weird thing. You know, when I was going through one of a very dark phase in my life, horribly dark, awful, never want to go back there. Creatively, I was the best. It was amazing. It was ridiculous. Everything was horrible. And I'd sit down at my typewriter back then and boom, win another award. It was quite extraordinary. I can't explain it.
Extraordinary is our next guests are waiting in the digital green room.
Yes.
And I'm very excited to say that they both appear to have similar caliber microphones that we have. So,
Ovaltine tins and string.
Absolutely.
Okay, then we like them straight off.
Anyone would think there's an association with radio going on there.
God damn.
So, without further ado, I suggest that on Men's Radio, the Daily Show with Russ, Kane and Phil Dave, we bring in our next guests who are patiently waiting and looking suitably horrified. We have Jim Daly and Giles Paley Phillips. Welcome, gentlemen. Good afternoon.
Hello.
Look at you. You got proper setup. You got a ring light there, Jim. Giles, you got all the things going on.
You'd think we do podcasts for a living.
No. I tell you what, Jim, I want to thank you straight away because your bookshelves, everybody else that you ever have on the show, the bookshelves are perfection. Yeah. And yours look like everybody else's house. It's like, oh shit, I'm just going to throw everything on the wall, hope it sticks.
Half a bookshelf. This is our office where my wife and I sort of try and work in quite commas. Half a bookshelf. I've got a photo of my mother-in-law, age 17. Who else doesn't have that in their office? And then I've got music.
Phil, there's a whole show there just in itself. A whole show.
And then I've got my wife does singing, so I've got a whole sheet music printed out on the wall here as well. So it's not
saying so. Don't mind me saying so, Jim. I think your wife's got a little bit too much say-so in that room going on there.
We are 50-50 right down the middle. Right down the middle. So because I will say as
modern
well,
kids, eh?
if you come
You
this
modern-
way,
I know you got your football shirts.
I've got all my football shirts.
well,
here,
there you
so-
balanced it all up.
Yeah, as I say,
Okay.
Thing though,
Couldn't
actually,
see a Tottenham shirt there, Jim. I'm sorry.
Oh no chance. No
You know,
chance.
to be
Well,
fair,
you
to
better handle the interview, Phil. I think I've suddenly got busy.
I would suggest actually that, to be fair to Russ, he likes sheet music as well. So
I'm not quite sure. I see where you're going with
There
that.
we go.
Right.
And
Giles,
no,
I have been
oh, no.
following you very interestingly on Facebook, and I think your stuff on Facebook, I find that jolly interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
Well,
What?
just find what
Oh,
you
that's
write. Just find what you write interesting. That was
Thank you. That's very kind.
No, not in the least. Thank you so much for joining us.
No,
Thank
it's
you.
a
I
pleasure.
really
Thanks for
appreciate
having us
Yeah,
on.
thanks for
Tell
having
us about your podcast, because I know that you got a lot of fans who really like the stuff. People were excited you guys were coming on.
Who's you going to go first, Jim?
Oh, I was going to say that's nice that people are excited we're coming on. That's
No,
that
they
means
were. There
that's
there
lovely.
was anticipation. I'm serious.
Oh, that's really nice. Well, I have to say, we do have with our podcast, the Blank Podcast, we have a really nice, friendly, engaged following. I don't know how we've done it. It's mostly Giles, but we seem to have cultivated just a really supportive and friendly following. And I look at our Twitter feed, and it's just constantly nice messages from people, which I think at the moment in the world is needed, to be honest.
Yeah,
So
well,
we're very lucky in that regard, and that's nice to hear people are into our pod. So that's made my day better. Thank you.
Why do you think there's so much? I mean, our last guest is the king of trying to sort this out. But why do you think there's so much viciousness and bile out there?
I think, I mean, I guess politically we're very divided. We have been for some years.
Yeah.
And I think social media exacerbates the lack of nuance in our conversations these days. So I think that's kind of the crux of it, really. I think if you get anything political that sort of spikes on, particularly on Twitter, then you do see that division tenfold, really. And I think that's probably part of the problem. We're not really talking to each other enough. We're shouting at each other quite a lot, but we're not talking very much. And I think
we're communicating with each other far too much, but we're not actually communicating in any way that's constructive, it seems to me.
No,
Yeah, I agree.
making noise, but for no reason. It's almost as if people are just batting back things in defense rather than actually having a proper full-on conversation. And we've just taken the most bizarre turn. I don't want to use the S word that you hate, Russ, but it seems that it's just a society-wide problem that people don't know how to converse anymore, how to communicate properly, and how to actually engage in a sensible and healthy debate with one another. And I'm not quite sure how that's happened. It seems to have been really quite sudden over the last 10 years.
Well, I do wonder if platforms like Twitter, for example, where you've only got so many characters to use, that means that you can't necessarily convey everything you want to say, and it's much easier to just blast out some vitriol than actually to sort of come up with a proper argument to things. I mean, on the flip side of that, I think the emergence of things like podcasts, for example, have allowed people to have more engaged conversations with each other. Something that Jim and I have really enjoyed is that having that kind of an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes 2 hours with someone to have a really in-depth conversation is a real sort of antidote to what we're seeing.
What's the thinking behind your it's a serious question, I'm not being flip. What's the thinking behind the podcast when you and Jim sat down and said, let's do a podcast, and it's going to be about what?
Well, it's normally led by the guest that we have as our sort of lead interview. In terms of the actual thinking, normally Giles will write a few questions and I will turn up 5 minutes late and then just try and say something stupid at some point. And somehow that balance works.
Sounds horribly familiar.
But
I mean, just it's almost as if you're describing Russ's internet plight.
I would never do that. But no, it's we don't go into the interviews. We're trying to call them interviews. We prefer conversations, really, because we're not going in for a line or to get a sensationalist angle or anything. We just want to chat. And sometimes we have A-listers on, and we might think, oh, it'd be lovely if they talked about this or they went this way. But if they do, great. And if they don't, well, also great. Like we're not too fussed. There's no production team behind us. It's just me and Giles. We produce and edit the thing ourselves. No one's pushing us to do something. And I think that is why our guests like coming on because there's no agenda. They're literally just coming on for a chat. And
Why
sometimes
is,
they'll
it
chat
called
about.
why is it called the Blank Podcast?
Okay, so I mean, the catalyst for it, I guess, was I was going through kind of a creative downturn, if you like, for doing writing. I was trying to write a novel, and it wasn't really going anywhere, and I couldn't sell any work either. I was really struggling to get any work away. And
What was your normal work, Giles? What would your just for background? What would your normal work be?
Well, I'm a writer. That's my specifically what I do. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, children's books mainly, but yeah, I've written a couple of novels as well. So yeah, predominantly, writing's my normal gig. And so yeah, I was having sort of creative, have a creative block or a blank if you like, and was just sort of talking to Jim about it. Who Jim's a stand-up comedian and was having a similar kind of thing with his career and getting the fear back for getting on stage and doing stand-up again. And we just said, well, I sort of thought, well, it'd be really good to talk to some other people, like some people that know what they're doing, to get some advice and find out how they get through their own those, because everyone has those moments, whether it's in creative life or just normal life.
Yeah.
And get some advice from them and see if we, it helps us in some way, but also, we'll I think it's something that it's a theme that will hit home with a lot of people. And I mean, Jim will say, I'm sure I'm speaking of Jim here, but when we first started doing the first few episodes, it was really apparent that there was more in it than just this creative kind of idea, like the idea that we have kind of blank moments in creativity or in work. It's actually the theme of blankness or going blank actually means a lot of different things to different people. So for some people it's imposter syndrome or it's public failure or it's social anxiety or it's grief or it's education, whatever it might be. There's all these different themes that have kind of and the podcast has evolved with that, and every week it's something different. Really
we do a very sort of therapist cop-out thing at the end of the podcast. We say to people, what could you leave us today with your advice for blank moments? And they say, what do you mean by blank moments? And we say, what do you think we mean by blank moments?
And then do you say, well, I'm afraid that's all the time we've got for, but if you can go and see my secretary outside, she can book you in for next week.
Well, actually.
It's very interesting. So Alexander Listenfeld, one of our broadcasters and listeners, says it's good to let the chat take its own course. No agenda. Love your podcasts.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you.
You know what? Hang on a second. In all the time that Russ and I have been doing this show, she never said that to us.
I never liked her.
We let this program take.
What the hell with her? What's she ever done with us for that?
Just
crazy
stop planning.
asymmetric hair.
Just stop planning. Stop planning the show.
That is the thing. Giles, if it makes you feel any better,
that goes into this program. There's no planning that goes into this. Do me a favor.
Yeah, I think it's evident. Giles, if it's any consolation to you, I am now a year behind with my second novel.
Are you?
Full year. I just have not been able to write during the 2020. I'm up to chapter 5 and under some pressure to get it done, but I just can't. It's all there. I just have to put it down on paper. I just can't. It's a very, very peculiar thing.
It's a weird thing, isn't it? Because I've spoken to some writers that kind of deny there's such a thing as writer's block.
It's not a block. Oh no, I'm not.
It's not block. You're not blocked.
No, I'm not. No, I've never, because my professional life was always as a copywriter and scriptwriter.
Okay.
And I always had to write to a deadline. I've never had the luxury. I couldn't say to I couldn't say to Vauxhall Motors or Mars Corporation or ICI or British Airways, I'm really sorry I got writer's block. I can't produce a script for your CEO. I'd be fired. So I've always had to deliver on time and on budget. So it's not that. I don't know what it is. I can't work.
So you need a deadline, Russ. You need a deadline.
I need a deadline. I work way.
Just say, well, we go back to before what Alexander Lichtenfeld was saying about your program. Okay, let's get this straight. Okay, it's good. Let's take it in. No, love your podcast. How does she describe ours? Rubbish. This is the kind of.
So what sort of guests have you guys? What sort of guests you alluded to? Because we were still stunned by the guests by the clients our last guest had. That was just fun, absolutely unbelievable. What sort of guests have you guys had on?
We've had all sorts. I mean, what's nice about our podcast is that and it was something we decided early doors, was to have a mixture of different people from different industries. So it's not just actors or comedians or whatever it might be. So we've had people from the business world and politicians on as well. So, I mean, big names, I guess, Louis Theroux, Dawn French, David Harbour from Stranger Things, Mark Gatiss, Stephen Mangan.
Love him.
Gary Lineker, Gary
Don't
Neville. Rachel Paris, Roisin Connerty. So yeah, loads of really great people.
So I once met through other radio work Dawn French, and it's not very often I get starstruck, okay, because you know how it is. If you work in the industry where part of your job is working with people who have a big name for themselves, you kind of learn a discipline where you don't react to it. You just get on. They're part of your job. Like, it's as simple as that. Yeah. But Dawn French, I made a bit of an idiot of myself with, because
I saw Jennifer Saunders.
I saw Dawn and I just said, "Oh my God, you're the Vicar of Dibley," and her reaction was brilliant. I mean, and this is why she is such a comic genius. She turned to me and she said, "Well, I'm not today." And so I really deserved that, but anyway, never mind. But she
honestly one of the nicest people. I mean, I think I was starstruck after she left. You know, it was one of those sort of things where you're like, "Oh shit, we just talked to Dawn French. She was amazing." You know, so it was kind of like when you were in the zone when you're kind of doing it. But yeah, she's absolutely lovely, and I've stayed in touch with her as well. So she's really, really great.
Jim, do you I used to before I did stand up myself, which is bizarre. I used to write for a lot of comedians of the old school, for the Light Entertainment, for LWT and all of that sort of stuff. And I have to say, and them and the producer were the most miserable people I've ever met in my life. And I stopped and I went back to corporate because I was having much more fun writing corporate scripts and writing comedy. A lot of them. Do you think a lot of comedians use their routines as therapy?
Well, firstly, if you could get my agent in contact with those comedians to write for them, that'd be great. If we could set that up after the show, that'd be amazing.
My pleasure, obviously. Consider it done.
Thank you. Yeah, I think so. Giles and I kind of feel the show is a bit like that for us sometimes as well, because we end up sort of talking about our woes to our guests. Sometimes they end up sort of being therapists towards us. I think when you're a gigging comedian, start of this year, I was starting to get more gigs on the circuit. When you're going around the circuit and you're traveling to gigs and sometimes staying overnight, the first people you're talking to that day is your audience in the evening. So if you're starved of that human interaction, it does become a bit like therapy, I think, a little bit. And obviously the best comedy is honest and you're talking about yourself.
Yeah.
So in a way, yeah, I think it is. But I think we all need that. We all need a therapist or a counselor or someone to talk to now and then, especially this year as well.
This year's been rough.
Can you just imagine how much build up that you're going to have for that now that we've had this year of COVID where we haven't seen any audience? But yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, I'm slightly worried that Edinburgh 2022 is just going to be hundreds of shows about COVID. So I think
that'll be it. My COVID comedy, my life in COVID.
Yeah. You could suggest the theme. You could suggest the theme might catch on. Thanks.
Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Dave, your comedy stylings. He'll be back for the midnight show. Try the chicken.
That's precisely. I love you've got doing Edinburgh.
I love you've got your own that's brilliant.
Of course.
I need that. I've got one of those as well.
Oh, no.
I've got a Rodecaster Pro as well. So
yes. I knew it.
Radio talk, everybody.
We'll have a sound off, shall we?
Yeah.
You
boys.
What
have they started?
You boys.
I'll stop now. Stop.
It's a very lonely life being a comedian. I would not. Well, I did the show in Edinburgh and I've done it in LA and London, but I would never go on the road with it. People said, I couldn't do it. I'd find it personally very depressing. I would not want to be traveling on my own again, and hotels. It's not me anymore. I don't want to do that.
Yeah, I have a wife who's an actor and has done comedy. We actually met on a stand-up comedy course, so she's very understanding. So if comedy does come back and I do get to gig more, I think she'll be quite understanding of that. We do have a 14-month-old daughter as well, so that doesn't throws another thing into the mix as well. So yeah, I think it can be lonely, but when it's what you want to do, I would happily go out and travel and gig again because it's what I want to do and I want to get out doing it. So, but there's always those conflicts and those compromises I think you have to make with any creativity. So Yeah, but at the moment, no choice. Anyway, I've got to stay at home anyway.
Absolutely not. Tell me something, you both of you, because you've both got your finger on the pulse. There's two ways of thinking about how we're going to come out of this COVID situation. And it's to do with mental health. It's not about COVID. It's about how we are as people. One is we're going to come out of it fundamentally changed. We will not be the same people as we went into it, and life will be different. And the other is, which just kind of occurred to me yesterday, that we could see like a craziness like the Roaring '20s, where people have felt so constrained and so pushed down and so sick of it all. They're just going to go, screw this. I'm going to go to every restaurant. I'm going to see every comedian. I'm going to watch every show and just go wild. And I think entertainment industry could absolutely explode. It's somewhere between the two.
I think there'll be, I think there'll be a sort of a kind of midway point on that. I think people will be desperate to get out and see theatre shows and comedy, but obviously there will be slight constraints on finances. So for everybody, so I think that yes, I think people will be desperate for material to watch and content to listen to, for sure. And yeah, just to have that kind of, I mean, like I miss going to see like bands play, like gigs and stuff. So I think, I'd be right for doing that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think there'd be a half an hour. I do think, there will be, out of, history sort of tells us that out of these sort of very, very dark moments, lots of amazing things come out of them. So I'm hopeful that there will be, all sorts of amazing new things that will come out in the next couple of years, but I guess we have to wait to see. I don't know about you, Jim.
Well, I mean, there has been quite a lot of, people have been forced to be incredibly creative during this time. There's been a lot of amazing creativity and comedy and stuff coming out of people's homes during lockdown. I mean, you mentioned the theatre industry. Without getting too political, the theatre industry has been massively left to die at the moment, essentially, with lack of funding. And people will want to go back to the theatre. And when they come out of it, they'll try and go to theatre and they won't be open. And they'll think, oh, hang on a minute, where's the theatres? Well, they weren't funded during this lockdown. So that is such short-sightedism for me, because Giles is right. I think there will be a booming in creativity and entertainment, and people will want desperate to go and see stuff. But I think, Russ, you're right. I think fundamentally we will be changed as a nation, as human beings. I think, I hope that we are appreciating connection and contact more, and that we will be better connected to each other, our friends and our family, strangers on the other side of this. I know Twitter doesn't help, so I don't know how that throws into the mix, but I hope that we've all got a bigger appreciation of each other and of what's important in life through this, because it's been horrendous. I can't even imagine how I'm going to explain to my 14-month-old daughter in a few years that we lived through this, because I'm sure that she will look back in school books and stuff and be like, did we all live through 2020 and a lockdown?
Daddy, what did you do in the war?
What did you do during lockdown? I retweeted lots of memes, actually, so you're welcome.
Yeah, but it's
humans
sort of much appreciating more human contact, because honestly, I'm still seeing signs that people don't know how to be grateful. Honestly, I mean, I would love to think that you're right when you say that we'll come through the other side of this and people will be more grateful for what they've got, appreciate contact with others and all that. I would love to think that's the case. But the problem is, for as long as we have people around honestly whinging still about the situation that we are all in, I think people forget this. They seem to think half the time it's just them when they say, global. You cannot tell us what to do. You can't tell us that we can't do this, that, and the other. That stuff keeping everyone safe and well. Forget that. That doesn't matter, as you can't tell me what to do. As long as we have that attitude, I hate to say, I think those people are not going to change, and they're not going to realize what they've got, even though it's been taken away from them, because half the time they don't care. They're actually
if you're that way inclined, then maybe not. I do believe that people can grow and change, but maybe if you're that way inclined, you won't. But like what Giles and I talk a lot on the pod is about gratitude. And like, obviously this year's been tough. I haven't hugged my parents since February. They haven't hugged their granddaughter since she was 5 months old.
That will be so hard for them.
It will be, but
that will be really hard.
But I am grateful for the fact that that's the worst thing that's happened to my family. There are countless other families in this country that have had much worse. I was hearing some things on the radio about not being able to see loved ones when they're passing away. I cannot imagine.
That is just the worst.
What that's like. So yes, it's been a bad year for all of us. And my family has struggled, but it's nowhere near as bad as other people. So I'm trying to be grateful for that. And I think,
and that attitude, honestly, that attitude is what will carry you through it without making it 100 times worse than it is. Because I wholeheartedly believe, I know that people think this is really Pollyanna-ish, but if you're a glass half full kind of person, then whatever you're faced with will never seem as bad as it would be if you're half empty. I wholeheartedly believe
absolutely
that.
true. Be grateful. Now, a very important question for Jim Daly from Ramsey Wymersalem. Do
Hi,
you
Ramsey.
need new photos?
I actually got some. So Ramsey is a friend of mine that I know through Crystal Palace. Very talented photographer. Took my first ever headshots, which one of them's still on my spotlight actually. So you can go and see that on there. But I did get new, I did get new ones done at the start of the year through a different photographer that my agent recommended. But I'm always up for photo. I'm a very egotistical person, Ramsey. So if you want to take my photo, I'm absolutely happy.
This is good. I think you're being honest. We've got very honest guests. The guy's an egotist. Now, the other important question from Ramsey.
Russell, sorry, just before you get to the next question, do you think that given that ordinarily at this point in the show, we would be introducing the style, the finesse that is Chantal Rickards, who's waiting very patiently in the digital green room, shall we just play with the fact that we can have up to 8 screens on this one little digital studio of us and bring in a 5th one? I think we should
go for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chantal.
By the way, she has an OBE, so just I want proper
Hello.
manners.
Hi, guys. Hi.
Chantal, hello.
Party. It feels like we're out of lockdown. It's a whole party.
It is.
We're allowed one more.
We can have one more. Yeah.
Now, Chantal, thank you for joining us. I'm going to start with you immediately. Crystal Palace are playing tonight. What do you think the score's going to be?
Something love. Love one.
That's the
Is
one.
that the right phraseology?
No,
First
Crystal
goal
Palace
wins,
will
I
win
think.
by 3 wickets.
No. 1 wicket to love.
That's it. One
Something
wicket
like
to
that.
love. That is the one.
Or
Now,
maybe just be one love or something. I don't know.
Well, I hope that answered Ramsey's question to our full availability. Now, Phil's being very, very creative here. Now, Chantal, Jim and Giles have a very, very successful podcast called The Blank Podcast, but people were very excited that these guys were coming on. Jim's a professional comedian, and Giles has got writer's block. No, he's like myself. He's a writer. So there we are. And they've got this huge.
I'm not blocked anymore. I'm writing loads.
Giles, we probably should also say that we have a book to promote as well.
Yeah.
We usually don't have.
Right. Get it out the way. Come on.
Well, we've written a book that's based on the podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's kind of an accompaniment to the
Blank
podcast.
pages, is it?
It's just blank pages. It's
That would
just
be
like a
much
notebook.
easier.
It's a notebook, basically. Yeah. No. So
So
yeah.
I can't
so
turn it into a film. Can I turn it into a film? No.
I don't think it's gonna. Yeah, I don't think anyone's going to buy the movie rights for it. So yeah, it's
Anybody
based
would,
on the.
Chantal would be your best bet. That's what I'm saying. Now, we normally, gentlemen, salute Chantal with her own little theme tune, and please feel free to join in because we cannot welcome Chantal Rickards OBE without our theme, without the special
Do we have to
theme tune.
curtsy?
Well, no, but you have to join in with the theme tune, which Philip will now play.
And I bet you don't have this one on your roadcaster.
I don't.
Please stand by. It's time for this. Oh, yes, you can understand why you guys have got the viewing figures and we haven't. Anyway, it is now time for us to look at all things television because, of course, here at Men's Radio, we obviously do take our jobs, unbelievably enough, quite seriously once in a while. And regrettably, after a week long of programming, which can, let's be honest, have some very serious subjects in them from time to time.
Just a bit.
It does get a little bit mentally draining. So we like to lighten the mood at the end of the week by welcoming Chantal onto the program, who talks telly with us. And Jim and Giles, how do you fancy sticking around for this? It's nothing
Love
like
to.
the spot.
Yeah.
But might as well.
Love to. Yeah.
I mean, to be honest,
I like
with
telly.
Well, there we are.
Loads
This
of
is
TV.
great. This is great.
tell you what, we'll double what we're giving you for this interview. How about?
Yeah, we're throwing it away.
Zero,
Giving it
zero.
away
What's that,
today.
mate?
Now that we've got Richard handling all our PR, we're going to be the biggest radio station on the planet.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I look forward to
Can you imagine?
Planet
Right.
Mars. But anyway,
Chantal, I have found virtually nothing this week apart from a good documentary and a film series. So please give us your wisdom.
Well, in advance of Sky doing the third series of Tin Star, I think a lot of people didn't see Tin Star first time around. It's a TV series with Tim Roth. It was started in 2017, but the third series is just about to come out on Sky. So I urge everybody to go and watch the first two series if you haven't watched it. Tim Roth is an extraordinary actor, as most of us know. For those that didn't know, he should be called Tim Smith. His dad was Ernie Smith, but in solidarity, anti-Nazi solidarity, he changed his surname to Roth. That's just a little piece of nonsense for you. But anyway, so Tim Smith, who is Tim Roth, is the absolute hero of this police drama. It is a police series based in Canada, the first two series in Canada, but there's a bit of a giveaway in the title for season 3, which is called Tin Star Liverpool. So I think I'm fairly safe in suggesting that the copper is coming back, but he's a British ex-Met copper. Clearly every single police drama has a sort of slightly fractured or broken police officer at the heart of it. Tim Roth is no different. He's a former alcoholic. His life begins to fall apart when he arrives in a Canadian town in the Canadian Rockies. And actually it's a very good series and you cannot stop watching Tim Roth. He's such a good actor. He's paired up alongside Christina Hendricks, who was the gorgeous redhead in Mad Men. I don't know if you remember Mad Men, with the very, very beautiful girl who was the office manager in Mad Men, Christina Hendricks. Just a bit. I think the guys remember her pretty well. And she's in it. Genevieve O'Reilly, the Irish actress, is in it. And it's really good. It's definitely worth watching. It's quite shocking right from the start. But it's good.
Shocking in terms of violent, or
yeah, it's something very shocking happens right at the beginning, and you go, oh gosh, I think this might be too much for me. But I think the blokes can take it. The girls might wince a bit, but I think the guys are going to be right there behind it.
Oh, Chantal, we're going to get the snowflakes whinging at us now for you saying that. Unbelievable. Anyway, well, here's hoping. Can I say, it's curious that you mentioned that about Tim Roth, actually, because my family as well, I believe, changed our surname also in a move against the Nazis, because frankly, if we would have kept the original surname, we would have been shot. So anyway.
Tricky. There was an interesting fact I found out about him. You know, he's a lad from Dulwich. He's just, a London lad, made good, has appeared in nearly every Quentin Tarantino movie, and he's very Hollywood A-list. He's a really, really good actor and definitely worth watching. When I see those Hollywood actors transferring to telly, I just love it because it says so much about how good telly is these days.
So remind the name of that series and where we can find it.
Tin Star is on Sky. It's also on Amazon. So you could find the first two series there, and the new series will be on Sky. But I think they're also showing the first two series as well, so people can catch up.
Now, as we've got the boys joining us unexpectedly but delightfully, you're going to ask one each, starting with Jim. What's caught your eye on TV? Is there anything particular that you're binge watching?
Well, I was just Googling Tin Star there. And Christina Hendricks, she's also in Good Girls, which is on Netflix, which had an amazing first season. Second season tailed off a bit for me. I think we started watching the third season and it got a bit ridiculous. But I haven't given it. It might get better. I don't know. Am I supposed to be picking up shows or slagging them off here? I'm not quite sure.
Recommending.
Yeah,
recommending to all the listeners and viewers.
I won't be watching the Good Girls.
First season. Watch first season of Good Girls. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Christina Hendricks is very good in it.
Brilliant.
And what about you?
Series 2.
I'm the best thing I've seen all year, and actually for quite a number of years, actually, has been The Queen's Gambit. I mean, I saw it on Netflix the first day it came out, and I said to my wife, well, should we give this a go? And we were both a bit like, I don't know, chess. It's going to be exciting, but it's such a brilliant show. It's amazingly acted. The performances are fantastic. It's beautifully shot. The costumes and the decor and everything are amazing.
Great choice.
It's brilliant show.
Great shows. It sort of typifies what Hollywood is looking for at the moment, because they're mostly looking for really strong female-led stories, but that can attract a male audience too. And actually you think, well, chess is a bit blokey, but it's about a girl. So actually it's ticking both boxes at the same time. So it's perfect for what Hollywood wants at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. They've really done a great job on it.
Now, I've still got it on my watch list, so I must get round to it because everyone raves about it.
Yeah, I know. I haven't even seen 10 seconds of it. Paul Claridge has said this, Chantal. I wonder whether everyone's seen this. Currently watching the third day, and I started watching this and I stopped. Jude Law, Naomi Harris, Paddy Constantine, Sky Atlantic at Sky Arts. A man and woman in two different stories travel to a mysterious island.
Indeed. We talked about it a few weeks ago. I didn't get past the first episode. I thought the first episode was really interesting, and then they were going to do a live, I think, second or third episode, and I got slightly lost along the way. Brilliant cast. It's quite challenging. It's not a typical drama. It's a bit sort of spiritual, ethereal, a bit sort of different, but it didn't hold my attention for long enough, I have to say.
Wow.
No, it's weird. I'm with Chantal on that. It's a weird thing, and I wonder mentally if we've kind of had a shift and we just can't always concentrate. If it doesn't really grab us from the outset, if we just think, I'm just not feeling it.
And the truth is, just because something is trendy, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to catch on. I mean, I remember a few weeks back, Chantal, when you were telling everyone to potentially rediscover Peaky Blinders, which the series is on Netflix. I'm about 3.5 episodes in, and I'm really, really struggling. I don't understand why, because everyone seems to love it apart from me. I don't get it.
But the thing is, it's horses for courses, and you can. I won't love everything that's brilliant, even though I look for really well-made TV shows. I don't like everything, even if it's really well made. So it's personal taste.
It's interesting. I don't know how you feel about this. I watched, I think week before last, I'd never seen it, 1917, which everyone raved about. I was so bored, I had to keep fast forwarding. I know technically, I totally get it. Technically brilliant. Yeah. But it was like, as my film producer buddy said, and I couldn't work out what was driving me mad. It's like, aren't I clever? Yeah. It's like, hey, supposed to see.
There's a lot of tracking shots in there, isn't there? There's a lot
it did win the BAFTA. It did win the BAFTA for best movie, but I wouldn't have voted for it.
And I just thought, I've seen this story about 20,000 times. I don't know. I just felt. Then I got cross with myself and said, must be me. Everybody else loves it. So there we go. Right. Chantal, what else?
I'm with you. So last week we talked about the last Scandi Noir series that had just finished on Channel 4, on BBC 4, which is really worth watching. But the new one has now started, and I'm happy to say I'm 2 episodes in, and it's really worth it. It's called The Valhalla Murders. I'm not going to really spoil it. Clearly, there's a slightly odd start with a policeman who's a bit disgruntled, and you don't quite know where it's going to go from there. It's made by Kudos. It's an Icelandic story. Part of the story is true, but they're the people who made Grantchester, and they made Hustle.
Oh, I love that.
And they made. I'm trying to think what else they've made. They've made so many good things that you would Broadchurch they made. So very, very good team that's made it. And what BBC Two do is they drop 2 programs each week. So you can't see the whole thing yet. If you want to see the whole thing, wait for 3 more weeks, and then you can watch it back to back. But otherwise, there'll be another episodes 3 and 4 will appear on BBC 4 on Saturday night. But worth watching, definitely worth watching.
And Alexander Lichtenfeld says, and I can't get into Schitt's Creek. Might I suggest that you drop your clean living, and that might help you with that particular problem?
I watched the first episode of Schitt's Creek and thought it was fine.
Me too, Jim. Me too. I was the same. And I love all the players. I love all the players in there.
Fine.
So it's a real shame that I just thought,
maybe some shows take. I mean, remember Breaking Bad? Breaking Bad took like 3 seasons to get good.
Absolutely.
Like some shows just take a bit of.
No, I loved Breaking Bad from the.
I struggled with that the first couple of seasons, but it got amazing.
In this lockdown, I've just gone into a show. I don't know if you've heard of it. called Game of Thrones.
You don't know? Yeah, I've heard
Game
Rings a bell.
Game of
of it. Yeah, really
Thrones.
good until season 8.
Rings
Oh.
a bell. Yeah. The problem with shows
I'm,
like that
I'm,
is
I'm a Game of Thrones
commitment.
denier for the last series because I
Oh.
felt let down.
Oh,
Mm.
I won't say anything. Spoiler alert. It's very weird. I'd watched season 1 10 years ago, whatever it was, and then
Yeah.
I'd never got back to it. And then bit by bit, I've now caught up. So I know the deal.
I have commitment issues with shows that are that long. Like I really want to watch Sopranos, but I just don't. I'm never going to have the time to watch 400 seasons of it. It's just not. It's just not going to happen.
Well,
I
I
Interesting.
absolutely loved Game of Thrones, but yeah, I was quite devastated.
Jim,
I felt they let me down.
The ending was like,
You say that.
really?
Well, they
It's
run out of source
really
material. It sort of started to go to pot.
watching a show or committing yourself to something that is that long in terms of series, because I was everyone told me, and I've mentioned this before on this program, so I'll be quick about it. Everyone told me that Death in Paradise is the most amazing series. Got to watch it, love it. No one's told me it's a bad program to watch, and I hadn't seen one episode of it up until a couple of months ago. I have religiously, since coming home from silly o'clock in the morning, because to those who don't know, I work in the wee small hours in the day job, which is why I'm free during the day to do programs like this. But anyway, in the day job, when I come home, I make a point that whilst I'm having breakfast, I watch an episode of Death in Paradise. It has taken me about 3 months to watch all of those episodes on a daily basis, and sometimes watching 2 episodes in one day. So it can be done, but my goodness me, you got to watch it religiously to make
Death
sure you
in
can.
Paradise. Death in Paradise is a good show. I like
I
it.
love
brilliant.
that show. I
Yeah.
love it.
Really good. Really good.
It's so much fun.
Really
lovely,
watchable.
lovely Demisa, who's recovering. Sorry, lovely Demisa, who's recovering from having a horrible. Went out for a walk, Chantel, tripped over uneven paving, smashed herself to pieces, I mean, the whole lot. So we wish her well. She's a fantastic person. We used to
Sorry
work together
about
at
that.
We used to work together at
sure
Capital.
thing.
I tried Schitt's Creek, which she said it always sounds dirty, for a while. Good actors, puerile script, loathed it.
It is puerile. I mean, I never said it wasn't puerile. It's completely stupid, but it is very funny, and it is well made.
I kind of like stupid.
I love puerile, but I just couldn't get into it.
I found a good document. And before we come back to you, Chantal, because you are the
Yep.
queen of all recommendations. Everybody then goes, what she said, and they write it all down, and then they go away and watch it. It was called The Hurt Game. And it was about MMA, which is mixed martial arts. I won't get into the morality of mixed martial arts now. You know, it's the fastest growing sport in the world. It is gigantic, especially since Dana White took it over. It turned it into a multi-billion-dollar business. But it's about the people who go into mixed martial arts, the MMA, and it follows some of the stories.
Okay, interesting.
Wow.
Well, I've
Very
got another
different
good
people.
documentary for you,
All good.
which is on the BBC. A lot of people will know the story, but even if you do know the story, this new documentary is really worth watching. In 1971, a bloke called D.B. Cooper boards a plane in Portland in Oregon to go to Seattle, sits down, orders a bourbon, hands a piece of paper to the flight attendant. She thinks she's being hit on, so she just puts it to one side and doesn't read it. When she goes back down the aisle, he goes, "I think you better read that piece of paper." And the piece of paper says, "I have a bomb on board." So, and he then says, "Please sit down next to me." So she sits down next to him. He shows her the bomb. This is true. He shows her the bomb. What then happens is the most extraordinary mystery. So there is now a great documentary on the BBC at the moment called The Mystery of D.B. Cooper, which was this bloke, Dan Cooper, who had boarded the plane. The plane lands, people get off, but not everybody. $200,000 is delivered onto the plane with four backpacks to jump out of the plane. That's what they think is going to happen. Nobody quite knows, and the plane takes off again. And I'm not going to spoil it from there. The fact that it's still called The Mystery of D.B. Cooper tells you that the ending is not necessarily cut and dried, but it's probably the biggest American real life mystery, certainly as far as a hijack is concerned. And it's really worth watching. It's an astonishing story.
That was me doing my parachute routine. That's what I was doing when you were looking quizzical. That's what I was doing, my parachute thing. It's a weird story, isn't it?
It's a great story. It's very, very peculiar. And nobody really knows what happens. But this guy obviously had an enormous amount of knowledge about the particular plane and what was on it. And it's a really good documentary. So do watch it over the weekend. It's only 90 minutes. You don't have to get into a whole series to watch it. But it's under the Storyville brand on the BBC iPlayer at the moment.
Oh, they're fantastic
stories.
stories.
Spawned a load of merchandise as well. You know, for years, there have been DB Cooper T-shirts and all sorts of. It's a weird story. I managed to find a film that kept my attention, which is really, I'm mine like a flea at the moment. And I kept reading about it. I never got around to it. It's called The Ip Man, IP, and then MAN, Ip Man, and it's martial arts with the amazing Donnie Yen, and it's just beautifully done. If you don't like martial arts films and think, oh, a load of old rubbish, it's true. It's a true story. There was an Ip Man who, it's his story, and then spawned 6 other films, a bit like the Rambo franchise after that. But he is amazing. The choreography is incredible. And it's just beautiful to watch and nicely done. It's Chinese, English subtitles. There you go.
Okay. All right, good. Well, I wanted to throw a couple of travel series at you. One that's absolutely modern and up to the moment, and the other one which is a reflection of times gone by. So the BBC again have done a 4-part series with Michael Palin talking about the wonderful travel documentaries that he did starting nearly 30 years ago. He did Sahara, he did Pole to Pole, clearly Around the World in 80 Days, which was the first one to spawn the ones that came afterwards. And it's a very beautiful reflection of all of those great series. He's so effortless, Michael Palin, and he's got such sort of perfect humanity, the way he treats other people. His great courtesy towards his fellow human being just comes absolutely straight through on the screen. And it's really worth looking at. It's 4-part series, but looking back at them, wonderful travelogues.
Could not agree with you more. It's absolutely lovely. It's a great antidote as well to feeling a bit blue. It's lovely. He just seems to be the most, I've never met him, but seems to be the most charming and delightful and genuine guy. And God knows there's a few of those around. So, and they're great shows. Spectacular to watch. Yeah. Spectacular.
And on the other side, absolutely up to date on Apple TV, is the new series with Charlie Borman and Ewan McGregor on motorbikes. This time they're on electric Harley Davidsons. It's called Long Way Up. They've done Long Way Down. I think they've done Long Way Round. And this one is Long Way Up, going 13,000 kilometers through Central and South America. And it's a buddy movie. Basically, these two guys are best buddies. And that's what's so sort of lovely about it, because you just really get into the vibe of the two guys just joshing around and having a great time. But it's also a brilliant travelogue. So it's definitely one for the guys. I mean, you know, the two of them are fairly easy on the eye for the girls, but it's a bit more of a blokes documentary series. It's on Apple TV called Long Way Up, and that's worth watching too.
I think what we should do, Chantal, because you're a very accomplished television producer as well, with a huge history of success, we pair up Jim and Giles. We buy them those little stand-on electric scooters, and we go to Croydon and Peckham. We just follow the series.
It's not a bad idea.
Shove them up segways and off you go.
You know, they could go into, like, you know, fried chicken shops and have adventures. I can write the whole thing now.
Why not?
Great.
I'm up for this.
You see, I've already sold it. You sold it to the main protagonists.
I bet you're pleased you stayed now. I mean, who needs a brilliant listened to podcast when you've got Russ coming up with your future of your career?
Wait a minute. What, you know? All right. So
I'm in, definitely.
There you go.
Okay.
Right. Chantal is producing, and we'll get many of her pals to direct.
Chantal, I'll send you my Spotlight link, and we'll make
definitely
it.
Good. Please do. Very happy to receive it.
Just to keep everything in house, Mr. Jim Daly. Is that before or after Ramsey Y. Masalam has taken a new photo of you? I like to bring everything.
Sounds
back
a bit
to our
dodgier
listeners.
than it actually is, doesn't it?
It's all to do with
legit.
our listeners. Now, how do you feel about the brouhaha over Crown? Ed Grossman, Crown is wonderful. Helen Bonham Carter smashed it for me. I'm also watching The Young Pope, and of course, your recommendation of Industry Love it. Very sexy and pre-pandemic. Good for the beeb. How do you feel? Then I'm going to throw it to the boys very quickly. Crown. Other people said, I refuse to watch it. I'm not going to watch it because I'm actually I don't mean me. I just haven't watched it. But other people are saying I'm offended. I don't want to do it. It's a program about living people. They can't say anything. How do you feel about that?
I've not watched it, but not out of choice, purely out of lack of preparation and scheduling. But I would like to watch it. It sounds fantastic. I mean, the reviews are also good.
Jim, is that your way of saying you're one of the few people who doesn't have a Netflix subscription?
Oh no, I do have a Netflix subscription. I'm bad at organising my time. So I'm the sort of person that says, "Oh, I haven't got time for that," but I definitely do, and I spend half the time on my phone on my sofa doing nothing. So if I could organise time to watch it, then I would definitely, because I've heard it's very good. But
it's like what programs are you watching while you're looking at your phone, basically, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Basically, Hallmark movies. My wife and I watch a lot of Hallmark movies, Christmas movies, because you can put them on in the background. You know exactly what's going to happen.
Of course.
And you can just sit on your phone for an hour and a half.
Well, they all star Dean Kane.
Yeah,
Dean Kane or Lacey
Lacey
Chevelle. It's Dean Kane or Lacey Chevelle, basically, are the leads in them. And she's in it.
The relationship with Jim and Charles.
That's it. That's it. It's all right, Charles. You can pair up with Phil. It'll be good.
The number of Christmas movies there are out there is absolutely mind-blowing. I cannot believe did no one think that it would ever be a good idea to pull resources and just make few really good Christmas movies rather than loads of really bad ones? I can't believe no one ever.
They're not bad. They're sort of strangely charming.
Oh, they are not.
That's all they. I'm with Jim on this.
Single one follows the same blithering storyline.
Well, of course they do. That's why it feels comfortable. That's what
what's happening.
I'm with Phil on this.
I'm with Phil on this.
Recently divorced mother in the middle of a state in America that no one's ever blooming heard of.
Of course.
In a small town who works in a coffee shop.
Obviously.
Her husband walks in through the door. It's pouring with snow outside. She says, yes, how can I serve you? She spills the latte all over him by mistake. Right. He says, don't worry, can I take you out for a drink? The next thing you see that they're in bed together, but you don't see it because it's a family movie, so you can't see that. You just get the inclination as they pan out over the Christmas tree. And then at the end of it, you see a wedding ceremony where suddenly they're one big happy family and all sat around a turkey. It all goes exactly the same.
I'd watch that. I would watch that.
That's one of my favourites that you've just described for me and Jim. That's one of my favourites.
Yeah,
the other is they take somebody like Chantel, very sophisticated, urbanite, with a big high-powered job, and for some reason she has to go back to her home, which again is some godforsaken state that is not even a flyover state, the middle of freaking nowhere, and she's a fish out of water, is our Chantal, until she meets recently widowed handsome guy who's a lumberjack. They have no. Chantal produces top television shows. He cuts down trees. This can't possibly work. But she reconnects.
I'm loving it. Yeah,
there you go.
Fantastic. Couldn't be better.
There you go. Jim and I could write about 2 of these a day.
And they're always called like the Christmas Sparkle or
that's it.
The Christmas Tree, or
you do have to remember that actually, on a serious note, or not entirely serious note, that America is a very Christian country, and Christmas programming full of Christian ideals is incredibly important to them. I'm not saying it's wrong. Clearly, it isn't. A lot of people really take this stuff on board very seriously. So that's why there is a massive proliferation of Christmas movies. And generally, the people aren't divorced; they're probably widowed or something like that, because divorce doesn't really play into those Christian ethics. Anyway, I just add that in for good measure.
Well, I thought it made me sound like less of a swine if I said they were recently divorced, but inevitably they more often than not are actually widowed. Anyway, unbelievably enough, everyone, I'm terribly sorry, but we are pretty much flat out of time for today's program. So Chantal, we've got just about time for a couple of quick fire suggestions from you, I'd say.
Quick fire, right. Gorinda Chadha wrote Bend It Like Beckham, so a little bit of a football theme. She's also written a great film that came out about 18 months ago, a little bit less, called Blinded by the Light, which is on Amazon. and it's a young journalist, Asian journalist. It's a true story, and he is a complete fan of Bruce Springsteen, and he spends his whole childhood trying to pursue his Bruce Springsteen dream. I say no more than that. It's beautifully written. It's
brilliant.
A great story, and it's funny too, so it's worth watching.
Very good.
Excellent stuff, Chantel. Thank you very much
Thank you
indeed.
so much, Chantel.
Charles Paley Phillips, thank you both very much indeed.
Thanks, guys.
We really
Cheers.
you.
Lovely
of
to
course,
see you.
Thank
See
you
you
very
soon.
much as well to Richard
Bye.
Hill as well. So there you go. That's it. What a show. I believe that we survived it quite well, Mr. Kane. It was quite busy. It was almost like Piccadilly Circus used to be.
Like used to be. It's nice. It's lovely that people want to come on the show, and it's lovely that they interact, and they're so honest and open. I really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody for your fabulous comments for the last 3 hours. Loved it. Loved it.
We do it all over again on Monday, shall we? I mean, I know this sounds like a crazy idea, but we can't even put ourselves off. So we'll come back on Monday and we'll see you at midday. Have a good weekend, everyone. Goodbye.
Are you feeling anxious? Online Therapy 24/7 is here to help. We offer confidential support from the comfort of your own sofa. Our highly qualified therapists are experienced in a full range of daily challenges. You'll be in safe and trusted hands. Don't suffer alone. Change your life by calling us on 0207 553 50 80 and check out our website onlinetherapy247.com.